Test, 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 test. Hello, hello. Test, 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 test. Testing. Can you guys hear me? I see. 1 second. Test, 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 test. Okay, test, 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 test. Can you guys hear me? Having some quirks with the microphone, but I think I got it figured out. Here comes the soundtrack. Alright, there we go. So I'm gonna mess with the levels here before we get started. If I bring this down a little bit, and then bring this up over here. Oh, I think I'm causing an echo. I see the problem. Okay, thanks for your patience. 1 second. I can see the problem. Let's just do monitor only. Okay, monitor off. There we go. Okay, test, 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 test. Hello, hello. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. Well, still not doing what I... Sorry, folks. Still not quite doing what I thought it would. 1 second. Oh, I see. Monitor off. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I think I fixed the issue. Sorry, OBS is giving me some trouble over here. Probably because I keep poking and prodding it and trying to figure out what exactly I want it to do for me. So hopefully you're hearing me okay. It looks like my little bird avatar is lighting up. That's usually a good sign. That's part of the reason why I like having it there as well, just letting me know that there is some signal coming through. But yeah, hope everybody is doing well. Happy Sunday, everybody. Happy Sunday evening. Spooky season is in full swing. Hope that you're celebrating in your own way if that's something that excites you. I personally love this time of year. It's like my favorite. I like the colder climate before it gets fully fully frigid and the ground starts freezing over and all that. I do like kind of horror and spooky stuff. I tend to be a bit of a softie in regard to jump scares and things like that, but at the same time I'm very fascinated with horror as a genre. Silent Hill being one of my favorite series of all time. I get to well, I don't want to spoil anything, but I am nearly finished with Silent Hill F, and I have very much enjoyed what I've played so far. I started Still Wakes the Deep, which was fun at first, but I really don't like the sort of Amnesia: The Dark Descent style run and hide from monsters, and like if the monster touches you once you die, like that kind of thing. So once it got a few hours in, I was like, I'm really not having fun with this. I gotta go back and check to see if they have a story mode like Soma, because I'm much more interested in experiencing the narrative than I am in like trying to mess with the game's systems. I don't find that kind of cat and mouse gameplay very fun. So I just kept dying because I kept walking up to the monster and being like, oh, cool, let me look at you, So Soma has a mode like that where they just remove the combat element from the game. I actually got into like not exactly a fight with somebody, but like sort of a tense conversation where they were saying that like Soma is an example of bad actors like taking over, diluting, watering down the games industry. Liberals taking my jobs, taking my games industry. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to caricature anybody, but like it was that kind of thing, where it was like part of this larger Gamergate discussion. And it's really weird as a game developer to hear people like pontificating about what we nefarious game developers are up to or what we're subjected to, because half the time it's like game developers are caving into the demands of the public and watering down art, being anti-art or whatever, and then half the time it's like, oh, we poor, put upon, impoverished game developers are being forced, slavishly to create these horribly politically corrupt products. The marketing team is forcing us to make these things that are completely devoid of any real ethics or morals, and they're forcing us to take away what made games great. And it's like, you guys don't know anything about what it means to make a video game. Like, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Like, a lot of these changes are coming internally, and it's stuff that we all as developers want. Like, we want to grow, we want to get better, and stuff like that. So it's it's kind of amusing to me. But I got into this argument with this guy who was like, well, the Soma developers made a game that was as they intended. It was hard, it was tough, it was fair, and it was their vision. And then because, like, the whiny, like, pathetic liberals or whatever didn't agree, like, the game was too hard for them and needed to be just right for them, then they watered it down and they compromised their vision. They didn't stick to their principles, right? And so it became this whole fucking part of this whole culture war thing about, like, well, they changed literally anything, and if you change something, it must be due to, like, a corrupting influence. When the developers just listened to what people were asking for, and they communicated with their fan base, and they went out of their way to make an adjustment that cost them more time and effort to be more inclusive to more people. And some people find, like, any kind of inclusivity, any kind of concession whatsoever, to be an act of corruption. And it's like, no, motherfucker, like, how about you go and ask the developers what it was like, why they made that decision, like, what it was like for them to go through that. But they won't, right? Because they're not really interested in that. They're interested in having being roped into this, like, you either change, you stick to your guns, or you change and you're corrupt, that kind of thing. So it was a little frustrating, but the game mode exists, like it or not. It is a good addition, in my opinion. And while I am talking about Soma, I will go ahead and say that Soma is one of the best horror games I've played personally. I know not everybody loves it. It is kind of a narrative walker, especially if you play with the story mode activated, like the combat mode off or whatever. But one of the things I love about it so much is that it does something with the medium of video games that very few games do, and I can't really talk about it. It's kind of like the Outer Wilds. It sounds super pretentious and frustrating, but if I tell you anything about why it's so effective at doing what it does, I will run the risk of spoiling something. And it's one of those games where it's like, I don't know, if I tell you who the third boss in a Kirby game is, or like who the final boss of an Assassin's Creed game is, it's probably not going to ruin the overall experience. But, like, even little things in Soma, if you have them spoiled for you, it can change. Like, you need to have those reveals. You need to be holding the controller and have those reveals happen to you to really feel it. And so it's also one of those games that you don't really get the full impact of if you watch it on stream, because it 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 it's so important that it is a video game and not a movie or something, right? Like, you need to kind of be holding the controller when certain things happen, and I can't I can't really say more than that. But anybody watching this looking for a really good horror game to play, it's not particularly hard. It doesn't particularly like take up too much of your time. It's maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 hours, I guess, if I remember correctly, and will stick with you and, like, get in your head and mess with you in a good way. I highly recommend checking out Soma. It's probably like $10 these days anyway. Saria says they added a mode that I don't have to use. This is high treason. Yeah, it really does feel like that, right? And I remember, I forget what it was. Since we were talking about Game Grumps, there was some minor controversy where people were really mad at Game Grumps because they, like, apologized for something. I forget if it was like they made a racist joke in the past, or like, actually, to stick with a more recent example, like, there's a game that I love called Lisa the Painful RPG. It's one of my favorite games. And in the original version of the game, the creator had a character who was like, the character's based on the Power Rangers, and there was like a black Power Ranger who showed up on screen, and he made like a monkey noise or something to go with the black character. So it was racist, just like straight up. And I think the joke that he was going for was sort of a South Park style, like, wouldn't it be really funny if there was a group of Power Rangers that was just, like, totally racist and fucked up? Or just, not all of them are racist, but, like, it's just a group of Power Rangers and they're all, like, The joke is that they are offensive. I am not a racist for making that noise along with that character, but wouldn't it be really funny if in this world these characters did that? Because that would be so offensive. Haha. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of South Park jokes are kind of constructed that way, where it's like I don't agree with this approach all of the time, but like the idea behind it is we're going to say a bunch of stuff that's really offensive, and it's not because we really believe it, but it's because we want to like push taboos or something like that, right? So I think that was the idea. Regardless, the creator recently did like a 10th year anniversary remastered edition or whatever. He put that out there, and he removed that joke because he was like, okay, I've grown a lot since then. I went back and I was like, you know what? Whatever my thinking of it was at the time, I decided it's not really landing anymore. It's not something that I stand by, so it's gone. And he removed it. And the same exact fucking narrative came out. It's like, oh, the liberals must have got to him, cancel culture must have got to him. And then when he's like, no, I decided to make this joke, to change it myself, then they were just like really mad at him for not sticking to his guns. It's like, again, any kind of improvement, any kind of change whatsoever must be some kind of regression, must be some kind of corruption. It's like, okay, just don't buy the fucking game, idiots. Like, I am not going to put it back. Like, this product that I am putting out now, the remastered edition, is just as genuine and important to me as the initial one was to me at that time. So if you value me, and like, he didn't say all this, right? But this is just sort of my interpretation of everything that went down. It's like, I have put this out there, and it is just as valuable to me and where I'm at with my life now than where I was previously 10 years ago when I made the original version. So if you care about me and my art and my games, then listen to what I'm saying, pay attention, play the games, and learn along with me. Or you could do this weirdo shit, right? So anyway, I don't even remember why I got to talking about that. Oh, yeah, because of Soma, right? So yeah, spooky game season. Play some spooky games. Hang out, watch some spooky movies. My partner and I just watched Sinners, which was pretty good. No spoilers. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. It definitely wasn't what I was expecting. But it was a solidly made movie. It was a very competently made movie, very beautiful, lots of cool music, some really surprising stuff. It didn't like really scare me all that much, but it was still, quite interesting and unique. I can't really think of any other movies quite like it, so I would recommend considering that. Again, don't go in expecting to be like unnerved and walking around like Hereditary or something and like needing to take a shower after or something. But it's a good fun time. Let's see. Rioman says, "Oh, hey, Rioman. I'm sorry I didn't say hello. Hi. I hope that you are doing well. Thank you so much for the conversation in Discord. Sorry it took a while to get back to you. Yeah, I'm glad that it looks like the conversation is going okay. Let me know if that ever changes. But appreciate your patience in the meantime." Rioman says, "I recently played the House and Fata Morgana side story where you have a few different movie options to watch in the cinema. Some South Park movie was one of them. Oh, that's awesome." So they actually it was like a parody of South Park, or they actually included some real like South Park footage. Either way, I really need to get around to playing slash reading that. I think I should probably check out the When They Cry series as well, because the person who was, I guess, like the author or primary author of that franchise also wrote for Silent Hill F, which I think we talked about last time. And so, given that I've enjoyed that, I think I should take a look at those as well. It's weird. I think Umineko is one of the things he's written, and I feel like Umineko has a really bad reputation, but Higurashi When They Cry has a really good reputation. So I don't exactly know what I'm getting myself in for, but we'll see. Okay. So I just want to do a little intro real quick before we get into things. First of all, we've gotten some new subscribers recently. I just want to say thank you so much for checking out the channel, stopping by and subscribing. I really appreciate the conversation that we've been having recently. I appreciate the feedback, and so thank you again for your time. I would like to encourage anybody who has feedback on these streams to please leave a comment if you're interested in sharing your thoughts. And also, if you have a suggestion for a future topic to cover, I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Sharingan, maybe, maybe not, but we're going to be talking about Pain versus Naruto, Sage Naruto, in a couple of weeks. We're also going to be talking more about multiversal Naruto, but specifically about Kaguya, because I think there's somebody requested this a few months ago. It just taking me forever to get to get around to it. I think it might have been Fod wanted us to talk about Kaguya, so we're gonna go back and talk about her. And then of course today we're gonna be talking about Lightspeed and Naruto, as well as maybe next week as well, depending on how much we get done tonight. But I'm always interested in hearing the back and forth, the discussion. I'm always interested in knowing what people think, and I'm definitely open to talking about topics that I haven't thought of. Like we did a Dragon Ball stream at one point. We talked about Sasori versus Kakuzu a little while ago. I'm really kind of down for whatever, so just let me know. For tonight specifically, this is part 2 of a 2-part series that we're doing discussing Lightspeed arguments in Naruto. To briefly recap the premise of that, a lot of folks in the broader Naruto community seem to be holding a consensus that at least some characters, at least in some parts of the series of Naruto, are capable of moving at the speed of light. And when I mean moving at the speed of light, specifically, I mean like they can perceive things that are moving at the speed of light. They can move their bodies, either in terms of like transportation techniques, or running speed, or combat speed, so punching and kicking, stuff like that, or jutsu use, whatever, at the speed of light. I'm not going to be talking specifically about arguments for teleportation. Technically speaking, teleportation could be considered faster than light, right? Like the summoning jutsu, Gamabunta, is 1,000 miles away. Naruto summons him in and he appears instantaneously. Well, basically, once the summoning jutsu goes off, it's technically faster than light travel, but it's not really movement in the same way, right? Because Gamabunta is in one place and then he's in another place. I think there's some explanation with the flying Raijin that it's like they move into a subspace and then pop out of the subspace or something like that. So anyway, it's not like he's literally physically moving his body 1,000 miles over the course of that like time frame, right? It's just he's in one place and then he's in another. So same thing with Kamui, flying Raijin, as I mentioned before. We're not going to be talking about that. We're specifically going to be talking about whether or not Naruto characters can move their bodies at the speed of light. And my position, which seems to be a slightly edgy position apparently, is that there is no evidence to demonstrate that Naruto characters are light speed. For shorthand, for simplicity, I'll just say Naruto characters aren't light speed. And what I mean by that is I haven't seen any evidence demonstrating that they are, and I don't think there's any good reason to believe that they are based on everything I've seen and heard. Now, it's still okay if you think that there is a reason to believe in Lightspeed Naruto. If you hold the fire inside, so to speak, that's totally fine. I'm not here to downplay or like to put anybody's perspective down. My main goal is to just try to identify what I consider to be the misunderstandings in the community. I do think that a lot of this comes from misinterpretations and misunderstandings of the source material, and if we can clear those up, then it's up to, like, my hope is that we'll then be in a better place to be able to come to these conclusions based on like less noise in the signal, so to speak. So if we wind up agreeing that Naruto is actually Lightspeed at the end of this, that's fine, as long as we're doing it based on good evidence. And I think the majority of the arguments that I've heard thus far are not really good and don't really hold up. To briefly recap one of the most important aspects of all this that we talked about last time, and then I will jump back over to chat. Just want to make sure I kind of get this all done in one go. Last time we talked a bit about the databooks. If you're not familiar with the databooks are collections of stats, informations, character profiles, jutsu descriptions, stuff like that. They're official publications. They're written by Masashi Kishimoto. I know that that's contended, and we could talk more about that, but for now, I'm assuming that they are written by Kishimoto, the same author as Naruto. And at the end of the day, they count as quote-unquote canon material. However, there's a tendency in the community to just assume that whatever's written in the databooks not only is true and should be accepted as coming from a reliable, omniscient narrator, but also that it should be taken as literally as possible, and that it should be assumed to be applicable to power scaling. Right, so if we have a technique description for, like, not to call out TG, but I was just watching TG Thunder God's video on Lightspeed Naruto, and then he quoted the 4th data book entry on Madara's Light Fang Jutsu, or Storm Release Light Fang, I think it's called, and that databook description says something along the lines of this jutsu cuts anything at the speed of light. And then his commentary on that was, so not only is this a light speed attack, but it also has insane AP scaling, right? So I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't want to say that he literally believes that it is or isn't universal in AP, but that is the risk. That is one of the things that can happen if we take databook statements literally like that. Well, apply that same logic to a technique like octopus hold, which we talked about last time. Octopus hold is in the 4th data book. We can actually take a look at it very briefly right now. Just ignore those ads. And basically, like, this technique says it's impossible to escape and members get laid before the final moments, right? So, like, you can't escape from it and you get laid when it's used on you. What happens if we take something like that literally? Well, it doesn't give us a very good overall understanding of the universe. So I'm not going to go through all of these again because we talked about them last time. Please feel free to check out the stream. But if you want to pause here, if you're watching this back on a video on demand type thing, here are some other techniques: the toad mouth bind, prison sand burial. Some of this stuff is not the technique specifically, but like clay clone, endless snakes, iron sand, etc. There's a variety of different things you could look into in the data books, and this is just a very small sample. But what I hope I think I established last time, was that based on how many statements there are in the data books that are incorrect or misleading or hyperbolic or whatever else, it's just not safe to accept them at face value. Like, we're gonna need to, it's not usually safe to just take something that's said in the data books that's a jutsu description specifically and just say, okay, because it was in the data book, therefore it is true, and therefore we can use power scaling terms and scale off of it. That doesn't really work. It doesn't really get us to a good understanding of the series. And this is all relevant to lightspeed scaling because apart from 1.5, and I will explain that later, apart from 1.5 statements from the manga and anime combined, we don't really get any actual statements of any character saying the phrase speed of light in the entire series. So no one character says, hey, that technique that he used, that was the speed of light, or wow, I can't believe we're moving at the speed of light, or that is almost the, blah, 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 right? There's no examples of that from the primary source, from the manga itself, except for one, the Heavenly Transfer, which we'll talk about later. So to summarize all that, most of the arguments for lightspeed come from the databooks. The databooks just aren't really reliable, and so I think most of those arguments can just be dismissed. There are a couple of things that are more discrete, like Heavenly Transfer, which we're going to talk about in great detail. But regardless of all that, I do want to go through the primary arguments that I've heard for Lightspeed Naruto, because I think that something that I've noticed is that the arguments tend to kind of connect together in a chain, and if you dispute one of them, people will kind of goalpost shift. Again, not to call anybody out, but we'll just kind of see this happen in debates and move to the next thing in the chain, right? So if people will argue that Kakashi is the speed of lightning because he cuts through a lightning bolt. And if you dispute that, then they'll say, well, I mean, he's relative to, or it's fair to say that Kakashi's probably lightning speed, even if you dispute this, because, I mean, the Raikage moves nearly at the speed of light, and he's not that much faster than Kakashi, right? And then you can dispute that and say okay, well, we know that Madara uses the Light Fang Jutsu, and we already know that that one is a light speed jutsu, so doesn't this actually kind of make sense that they would be in the same ballpark? I'm doing a bad job of scaling between these characters. Don't use those arguments that I just said. But the point is that that's kind of what will happen, is you'll dispute one thing and that'll kind of go to the next thing and then loop around. And by the time you get back to the start, we haven't really made any progress. So I do think it's still important to go through these. I do think it's much more helpful and useful to say, let's examine the arguments and at least talk about them, than just saying, well, I don't like the data books, so fuck it. I win, you lose, right? So anyway, that being said, I am going to catch up on chat. Thank you for listening to me talk for what feels like a half an hour. And we'll get into a brief recap of Haku, because there's a couple of things I didn't point out last time, and then we'll go on with the Waterfang Bullet, Kirin, and then the other stuff on here. Okay, so going back up in chat, Ryoman says Umineko versus Fata Morgana is a big debate in writing comparison community. they're considered like fiction slayers. Oh yeah, cool. I'm very interested to see like how they compare. It feels like from what I've heard of them, they have a similar vibe in terms of like tone and overall like storytelling goals, I guess. But thankfully, I haven't really gotten spoiled on it very much. So I think, other than the fact that apparently the some of the music that goes along with Fata Morgana is really good, so I'm hoping that that will remain the case, and I will just be able to kind of proceed and learn as I go, so to speak. Real Man Yagami says the movie is called Sinners and it's from 2025. Yeah, I think so. I forget if it was 24, 25, but it's definitely a recent one. And I think it's on HBO, HBO Max, whatever the hell they're calling themselves these days. But yeah, we just watched it last night. Um, so let's see. Saria says, honestly, horror movies just don't scare me unless they're literally Halloween, because that movie traumatized me as a kid and Michael Myers is like ingrained in my psyche. Yeah, I had a similar, I think we talked about this a while ago. I had a similar relationship with a movie called um, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I think it was the sequel. And in retrospect, it's a really goofy, kind of campy slasher movie, but something about like fish hooks and hook related things has always scared me since I was a kid, probably because of a bad like fishing trip that I had. And so I think it just like kind of got under my skin in a particular way. And so that is my version of that, so I think I can empathize. Sorry says that's not to say I won't jump at jump scares and stuff. I will, but I will never feel raw, unfiltered terror like I do with Halloween. Like I went to a friend's Halloween house when I was 15, and I didn't know her aunt was dressed as Michael, and I was literally having a panic attack. And for context, I went through twice. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry, it says the first time I didn't see her. I saw her the second time. That's when I said, fuck no. Yeah, man. I mean, like, that's legit. Like, sometimes you just have those specific images or experiences or sounds or whatever else that just really stick with you and are uncomfortable. And I'm sorry you experienced that. But for what it's worth, I mean, that is kind of a normal thing. And I think you're within your rights to say, like, no, I don't want to see that. Like, a friend. So I don't want to get too personal here, but, like, I really, really, really hate it when somebody pretends to, like, how can I say, like, pretends to believe something they don't, I guess. And look, I'm not trying to pick on Six here. You guys know that I'm, like, on good terms with Six as far as I'm concerned. But the last time, like, one time when I was in his stream, he did this thing where he was like, he was saying that he didn't believe in water pressure of all things. He said saying something along the lines of like water pressure is a myth, and it was totally a joke. It was obviously a troll, right? It's not a big deal, but it triggered something in my head where like 5-10 minutes in, he was still just like pretending that water pressure didn't exist, and for a very deep personal reason, I was just like, I have to leave. I can't be here. Like I don't want to hear you pretend that you're not believing in something that you believe or vice versa, right? It just like really made me uncomfortable. And again, like I'm not holding it against him. I don't think he like did anything wrong. He was just goofing off. But I was like, I can't be a part of this. So it's weird. It just kind of like everybody has those things that kind of like get in your head, right? That was the one for me. Hey Darth Magog, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. I've been seeing the community posts. I've been seeing the questions and stuff like that. Big respect, big ups for getting your channel kind of back in motion. I hope everything is going well and you've been enjoying the creative process. I still haven't gotten around to the ground vehicles video yet. Sorry, I've been dragging my heels a little bit there just with work schedules and stuff. I haven't been as exercising as good time hygiene, I guess you could say. But it's really, really cool to see that. And you hit 200 subscribers like right away, right? So congratulations on that. I hope it just keeps that momentum going. And it's been really cool to see so far. Sorry, says hello, Crate. Realman says relative and cross versus a. Oh wait, I didn't actually like read what you said. Sorry. Darth Magog said the term relative to is abused so heavily in power scaling that it's become irrelevant. Yeah. So I think, I mean, like it's one of those things like Blitz where I think different people have different definitions of what it means. Like there's the VSB like literal definition of it on the one hand, but then there's sort of the more vague, I don't know how I would call it, just like hey, can we just say that like Datara and Sasuke are relative? I would, if somebody asked me that, I would probably say yes, like meaning in their fight specifically. And like, does that mean that Datara scales equivalently to Sasuke in speed specifically, or in AP specifically. The like to what extent are they actually equivalent numerically? I don't know. I don't think that there's any one parameter where I could say, they are literally running neck and neck at full speed, like Sonic and Shadow or something, and so they are literally the same speed or the same strength. But overall, like when I hear the term relative, I just assume, based on what I've absorbed over the years, that it means that the characters are overall able to perceive each other's movements, able to react to each other's movements, and able to do some kind of effective damage to each other. And I'm sure everything I just said could be disputed and people would disagree with that definition, which is fine. But usually, unless people drill down on the definitions, it's kind of like saying blitz. Blitz technically means, from what we talked about previously, that if character A blitzes character B, that means that character B is incapable of perceiving and also incapable of reacting to character A's attack. But people also just use it to kind of mean like character A moved really fast and hit B before B happened to see it, right? So it's like there's some flexibility there. I usually am in favor of using the more like rigid definitions just to avoid confusion, but I also acknowledge that that's not always practical, so I'm not like as hardline about it, I guess. Unless we're like I'm fucking complaining about a noodles video or something, in which case, yeah, yeah, I definitely gonna be. Hey, Amidgrid, how's it going? Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're having a good weekend. Amidgrid asks, I don't think that's necessarily goalpost shifting, as it is them trying to build consistency, thus making existing arguments more believable. Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and I don't want to sound like I'm strawmanning or just saying like, hey, if you don't agree with me on any of these particular points, then you're just coping or something like that. Like, I definitely don't want to come across that way. I more want to try to. It's tricky. I was listening to TG's video, and I listened to one of Six's videos on Lightspeed leading up to this stream, and what I'm trying to describe is this idea that like, if I guess like somebody makes a claim about Kakashi being lightning speed, and then somebody will say like, well, here's that, and I'll get to this later too. Like, here's an example of maybe why Kakashi isn't lightning speed. Then the first person will say, okay, that actually makes sense. Like, I can see where you're coming from, but it just makes sense that he's lightning speed because Haku is light speed, and Kakashi should be in that ballpark, something like that. But then we go, okay, well, wait a minute, how do we know Haku is light speed? And then we go and look at that, and then and then I see like a similar thing happening there, where we could dispute that, but then even if we do dispute that and we agree on the like disputation, then we could be like, oh, but wait a minute, this other character is also, we already know X, Y, or Z thing about this other character, right? So no, I don't think it's a deliberate, dishonest goalpost shift. I don't think that like I'll actually like put Six and TG's videos in the descriptions. I think they're great videos. I think you should go watch them. Even though I disagree with a lot of what was said, I think, they come across as an honest assessment of the topic. But I'm trying to solve that puzzle, so to speak. Like, how do we actually untangle the individual arguments from that, like, Gordian knot of all these other different pieces without just getting caught in this endless, like, Ouroboros kind of cycle? And how do we break out of it and like take a look at it from a neutral perspective? That's what I'm trying to advocate for. Does that make sense? Does that basically seem fair? Okay. And if you have any thoughts on those arguments specifically, feel free to let me know. Like, I'm totally down to be challenged on any of this stuff. This is actually one of the few topics that I would actually maybe like to debate at some point. Not because I think that I would necessarily win, like I'm not a great debater. I just don't like have any practice debating, but because it's a really interesting topic, and I think it's one of those things where it's like I almost don't want to lecture too much. I want to try and like work with somebody that I disagree with to see if we can like figure shit out. Like, I don't know if TG would want to do that or something like that, but somebody who has a relatively neutral position but leans towards yes for Lightspeed, like, can we talk that out and see if we can make any progress? I tried to do that briefly with Sage of Thick Calves, and the conversation went pretty well overall, but we kind of got stuck on the Databooks thing. And to be fair, it wasn't something that like we scheduled or whatever. It was just I was basically goofing off in chat, and then like hopped into VC, like that sort of thing, right? Anyway, Darth Magog says, I love the bromance between the two of you. It's awesome. Yeah, no worries. You're not late. We just kind of still getting off the ground here as usual, taking our time to kind of chat things out. Um, so yeah, I appreciate you stopping by as always. Real one says, I think, I think 6 is not too right in the head. Not even trying to hate. It's just my random observations of some weird behaviors he had. Yeah, I think I mentioned before that I really didn't like what I perceived at the time to be some homophobic jokes in his chat. I also really didn't like what I perceived to be him basically it came across to me as cyberbullying, like going on to TikTok and like yelling at people. I didn't enjoy that. But when I started mouthing off about it in Sage's server, 6 reached out to me personally, and we talked. Like, he took time out of his day to talk to me and to try to explain. And I don't necessarily fully agree with that kind of humor, but I understand better like how it works for him, and I do appreciate that he took the time to basically like reach out to essentially a stranger who was slandering him on the internet and like try to find some common ground. So I won't agree with like that style of humor, but I will appreciate like the human gesture or whatever that was involved there, right? That's why I say, like, as far as I'm concerned, we're on good terms, and I appreciated everything that led up to that, even though I don't like the jokes themselves. Yeah. Let's see. Sorry, I said I had this happen to me. Someone told me Sonic blitzed Taboo in Brawl when the scene is literally showing that he catches him off guard, but he didn't react. Yeah, because he was off guard. Yeah, exactly. So the term blitz there, of course, being used to refer specifically to not something that's in line with its actual definition, at least how it was originally conceived by places like VSB. It's kind of taken on like a life of its own at that point and means something different. And at that point, it's like, I never actually checked this out, but I've heard that in some dictionaries, the definition of literally it now includes a sub definition of rhetorically, because people kept saying like literally when they meant rhetorically, and it became so common as like an exaggeration or whatever, that now it's just recognized as another definition, even though it is literally the antonym to the thing that it is, if that makes sense. And it's like, on the one hand, that's kind of goofy as shit, but on the other hand, I mean, like, language is constantly evolving, and it's sort of the thing where, like, we were having this discussion about gender neutral pronouns, and people wanted to use the term Z and Zer and stuff like that, or like XI and whatnot. And yeah, a lot of that stuff was silly and kind of goofy and weird, but mostly just because we weren't used to it, and like new things that feel a little awkward are always going to be a little awkward. And ultimately, we seem to have just settled on they as a gender neutral pronoun, which is also weird and goofy, but it is more familiar and it's easier to accept for now, at least, right? So language is always kind of like churning and permutating and evolving, and a lot of times things will just seem weird to us until we give it a second and get used to it. And then once we get used to it, a lot of times we'll be like, why was that ever weird to us in the first place, right? So, but yeah, as a tiny aside, I do wish we had like a gender neutral pronoun that was singular, that was separate from they, because that still feels like grammatically awkward. But for now, at least we have one. Yeah, like at least we've kind of agreed, like, okay, we'll use this for now, and that's some progress, I guess. Let's see. Darth Magog says the databooks are always interesting. Some people don't care if things are demonstrable if they show up in the book. Yeah, I think the databooks can be very interesting and can be very informative. For example, the story about Kakuzu, being essentially betrayed by his villagers, or like village elders, and imprisoned, and then breaking out, stealing their hearts, and stealing his most iconic jutsu, the Jungu, was something that was never mentioned in the manga specifically, as far as I recall. I mean, yeah, his fight with Hashirama was, but not the other stuff. And so there's an instance where the databooks are telling us something that's unique and cool about a character that's enhancing our understanding of the series, but it's not like it's coming from a supplemental piece of material. And I would like to accept that. I'd like to just take that at face value. So I do. And I've been trying to reconcile that, because I want to be fair. I don't want to be hypocritical. Why would I accept that but not accept something like Light Fang or Water Fang Bullet or whatever other Fang type jutsu has a hyperbole in it? And it's because I don't think those hyperbolic statements fit in with the manga when you actually test them out. Whereas even though we don't have direct confirmation from the manga that Kakuzu was literally imprisoned and broke out and blah blah blah, that does fit better than him. I don't know. I'm just making this up. Having a jutsu description that says he can blow up any object he fires it at, and then we can just assume that he can blow up a black hole, right? Like, is that actually represented in his power, output, in his power with in his fight with Kakashi? I don't think so, right? So context matters a lot. The data books are not useless. They're not stupid. They're not dumb. It's not like we shouldn't use them, in my opinion, but they're a tool. And just like any other tool, we should make sure to use the tool in the right context, in the right way, etc., right? So, Darth Magog says, at Ryomen Yagami, honestly, I don't think he's a very good writer, and he's boring, and his takes are bad. Oh my god, guys, with the slander here. But I mean, like, yeah, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And I would encourage everybody to give everybody a fair shot. Usually people that I disagree with very strongly will still have one or two videos that I find decent. Y'all know I'm not a really big Noodles fan. Actually, I'm the biggest Noodles fan, but I'm also extremely critical of everything he does. But his video on Jiraiya, honestly, like, if you were just looking for a video to show somebody that was like, here's an overview of Jiraiya without like too much extrapolation or whatever, here's just a Jiraiya video that breaks down his character, explains some stuff, you could watch that and get a good sense of his character. Like, I don't remember there really being anything wrong with that video. So, that's fine. And I'm sure that some of Six's stuff I've been like, I don't really agree with this, or I think you should have gone deeper on this or whatever. But then there's stuff like the Lightspeed video where I'm like, yeah, I disagree with this, but like, you did a good job presenting it, and you were like fair and unbiased as far as I could tell, and I just like sort of appreciated it. So whatever. But yeah, I understand, like, nobody's under any obligation to like anybody. You guys can disagree, you guys can dislike them, as long as we're all like basically being cordial. I'm totally fine with that. Let's see. Or not. Like, you don't need my permission to express yourselves. I'm just trying to be fair, Saturday morning opening confirms that Sonic is the fastest thing alive via statements, therefore he must be Blitzteer above Cebu. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the cool thing about that, is that if anything faster ever if anything ever comes into life, is ever born, is ever brought into being, that is faster than Sonic is currently, Sonic, by definition, because it's stated verbatim in a quote from the author, would just automatically scale faster than that thing, because by definition he is always at any given time the fastest thing that is alive, so he would just become faster in order to fit that description or that definition, right? That's how that works, right? And I know it sounds like I'm being facetious, but I was just listening to a debate where somebody was saying that, like, essentially, I don't want to misrepresent them, I don't want to straw man, but the argument was something along the lines of Naruto characters can practically scale indefinitely because they can, there's a line from Haku when he's talking to Naruto where we can go look for it if you want to, where he says something along the lines of, when you fight for the people that you love and believe in and you're defending them, you can be as strong as you need to be, which means that as long as any character is fighting for somebody that they believe in, then they can scale up to just as strong as they need to be to win that fight. So if, like, I don't know, Madara was attacking Kid Sakura, and Naruto saw that happening, and he needed to defend her, and he really loved her, then he would become, like, 1% stronger than Madara to beat him up. And it's like, I don't really think that that's what that quote was going for, right? I think within the context of those fights at that period of the story, sure. But I don't think that means we should take that literally and then just, like, act like Naruto characters have this sort of malleable, pseudo-infinite scaling. I think we should just look at that as, like, yeah, if you are, as a person, willing to, like, risk everything and dedicate yourself to working extremely hard to be able to, like, use the people that you love and care about as a motivation, and also, you know, we talk about, like, mental amps and emotional amps and stuff like that, then yeah, you will be stronger and you will eventually be able to do the things you need to do to protect those you love. But if that were always the case, then like basically nobody who was actively being defended by somebody um, that that was loved by them would ever lose, right? Like Yahiko wouldn't have died because Nagato would have just gotten stronger because he was defending somebody he cared about before Hanzo got to him and shit like that, right? So like technically, you know what I'm saying. I don't need to keep keep justifying this. But yeah, you just like got to be careful about taking statements like that for like literal power scaling purposes and all that. Let's see. Let me catch up a little bit here. I call one of my gender neutral friends a jellyfish. That's amazing. I love jellyfish. I got the first big paycheck I got when I got promoted out of like a temporary position to a salary position. I bought my roommate, who was my best friend at the time, this thing called jellyfish art, which was like a jellyfish terrarium aquarium thing. And he loved it because like jellyfish were his favorite. But then I think he was so hesitant, like he didn't want to break it or if anything bad happened to it, that he never fucking opened it. It just stayed in the box forever because he was like, I don't know, I don't want to do it wrong. So I wonder if they still make those anymore. Anyway, data books are good to take literally for things we don't see. They're neat for things we do see. Yeah, I think I would agree with that sentiment overall. It's just context is very important, right? Wait, I missed Minato doesn't beat Itachi. Oh, was that a 6 take? I did. I think I must have missed that as well. Yeah. I want to hear the arguments before I come to any conclusions about that. I think he would be hard pressed, but I also think like unless you think Itachi deliberately like lowered his defense or something to let this happen. Remember that Itachi did get penetrated by a kunai or something like a shuriken during his exchange with Sasuke, so he can be pierced by metal weapons, which I think is a consistent thing over the course of the series. Obviously not when he's got his Susanoo up, obviously not when he has his fucking Yata mirror up, but like at the same time, is there a win condition where what's his name? Sorry, Minato manages to put like to use a combination of like flying Raijin and his seals and stuff like that to get in and like get at Itachi and win? Sure, like I could see an argument like that. I think overall though, obviously Itachi has better like AP scaling, DC scaling, you know, better jutsu whatsoever, or like overall probably than Minato does. But you know, a flying Raijin when the Susanoo is down into like fucking Rasengan in the back like he did to Obito. I mean, that's doing something, right? Like there's an argument there somewhere in there. Let's see. Darth Magog says 6 has had years. He used to be interesting, but I find his videos are repetitive, and he started preaching more than he explains universes. Well, it's a shame. I'm sorry you feel that way. But yeah, I'm not gonna argue the point one way or another because I don't know his content that well. I like some of his stuff, and I like some of his stuff more than others. I'll just put it that way. Is there Darth Magog to kind of move forward with that? Is there somebody these days who and I'm not fishing for a compliment here, like name somebody other than me if you were going to name me, but like is there another content creator out there who's been making like rendered out videos that you've been really enjoying? I always like Sage's Reign. I haven't watched his stuff in a while, but like everything I've seen of his has worked really well for me. And then like Hedon's Heathen, I came across their channel recently, and there's some good stuff on there. Curious if you found anybody else. There's some really great stuff that people have. you beat me to it. Thank you, Saria. You've oh wait, no, sorry, I'm jumping around too much. But yeah, in the Discord, there's a channel where people have been recommending videos, and there's been some great stuff shared in there as well. So I appreciate the recommendations. Amidgrid says a secondary source IMO is entirely valid until it irreconcilably contradicts the primary source. So yeah, that's interesting. I'd love it if you would be willing to expand on that a little bit, because when I talked to Sage, he seemed to have that same basic perspective, right? The idea being that like, okay, this data book over here is an official canon piece of materials written by the author, etc., etc. And so we should just assume that anything in it basically is true until proven otherwise. And he used the argument that like, specifically with regards to hyperbole, if a statement is hyperbolic, there will be evidence to indicate that it's hyperbolic. And if there is no such evidence, then that means that the statement can be accepted as true. I don't really know how to. I didn't at the time, and I'm not even sure if I still do. I don't know how to really articulate my issue with that. I do have a fundamental problem with it, and I think it's that it's basically a presuppositionalist approach. It's just deciding to me arbitrarily that we are just going to go ahead and accept this because it's an official publication. It's like canon or whatever. Like it is something published by the same company or whatever, or the same author even. But we're not actually. I think my problem with that is that it's not like considering the context and the tone of what's being written. Right, something that is published as a primary, secondary, tertiary, whatever piece of information could be true or it could be false. It could be hyperbolic. It could be meant to be taken literally. It really depends on the tone and the intention of the piece of work itself. And I don't think you will get an accurate understanding of the tone and intention unless you really read through it carefully and compare it to the manga. So like if you go through, and we talked about this too with Sage and his server, like if you go through the manga and you look at characters' birthdays or whatever, and then you look in the data book, it's pretty easy to verify whether or not the like assuming that the birthdays are actually listed in the manga, it's pretty easy to do a numerical like spot the difference or whatever to make sure that those things are accurate, right? So conversely, if you have a statement in the data book that says like the Kirin, right, like the Kirin flashes and the enemy is vanquished, right? If you take that statement literally, like categorically literally, that would mean like people will try to take that statement for power scaling purposes and say that Kirin has infinite AP because it literally verbatim states that the flash happens and then the enemy is defeated. So if it's directed towards the enemy, then the enemy will be defeated, right? And obviously that's a bit silly, especially since Itachi wasn't defeated by it. So the key thing to do there is just to be like, okay, I get what it's saying, but how does it compare to what's actually in the manga? So I'm not advocating for us to discard everything or even to like do the guilty until proven innocent approach with the databook statements or vice versa. What I'm advocating for, I guess, is like to just, if you're going to use any given statement for an argument, especially for a debate, it's worth taking a step back and really breaking it down like line for line and comparing it to what happens in the series. So let's just take a minute and do this for Haku's mirror jutsu, because we're going to talk about it in a second anyway. I forget if it's in the first. It's probably in the first data book, right? So, and then we'll get to the other chats as well. I'm sorry about all the fucking ads everywhere. Okay, so this is Haku's jutsu where he creates the mirrors, you know, and he can like dash between them or like move between them, quote unquote, at the speed of light, right? And the phrase that people tend to use to scale Haku to the speed of light is over here, right? So this is Naruto Versity, by the way. It's a fan's translation of the second data book. I don't think there's an official one available, but this is one that people have used consistently in the community for years, so that's why I'm referencing it, okay? So here it says, for Haku, it's possible to move between the mirrors at the speed of light. It's impossible to see attacks sent out from this literal light speed movement. For the opponent, nothing is left but to wait in amazement. Every single ice mirror shows Haku's reflection. Under these circumstances, one could say it's impossible to see all of Haku's attacks. Naruto tries to... Okay, so my issue with this is not, okay, well, we should just discard this categorically because it's in a data book, right? But my issue is more that people will look at this and they'll say the speed of light, or specifically they'll be like, for Haku, like they'll like quote it as Haku moves at the speed of light, right? Or something like that. And they'll specifically double down on and emphasize this literal light speed movement. And what's happening there is they're finding one particular phrase and they're just accepting this at face value because it's an official source. But what if we apply that same approach to the other things that are in this same paragraph, in the same entity, right? So like inside the demonic mirrors. Okay, so if we apply a literal translation to that, are we supposed to assume that the mirrors themselves have a connection to an actual demon or to a demonic force or to the underworld? Or is this hyperbolic? Phantom world. Okay, is Haku actually inhabiting a world of ghosts? Does he go to an ethereal plane? Is he moving into another space, another dimension? Or is this hyperbolic as well? Is this meant to be taken as a more fanciful description, right? The abominable and tremendous ability, okay, these are just like adjectives, okay, passed down within Haku's clan. That seems realistic. right? Wrapped up in many mysteries. It is said that no method in existence can defeat this technique. Now, I don't really hear people talking about this, right? And especially because the technique is thwarted by Sasuke and Naruto in various ways, and I don't think that we're gonna like be sitting around being like, well, Kaguya um, couldn't defeat this technique just because it says something vaguely like that in the data book, because of course there's context that applies here, right? Like, it is said that no method in existence. We have to keep that into account. And also, we're understanding that this might be a little bit hyperbolic, right? And so I'll spare you going through all of these things, like every single line, but I will say, um, where is it? Yeah. For the opponent, nothing is left but to wait in amazement. If you take that literally, then this means that anybody who gets trapped in the ice mirrors, this is all they can do, right? This seems to imply an almost genjutsu like effect where, like, if anybody gets caught between the mirrors, then they can't move, they can't react, they can't do anything. And of course, I'm sure you're hearing me saying this, you'll probably be like, of course, I wouldn't use this to say that the ice mirrors are an instant kill effect. And I know I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that you wouldn't do that. But that's exactly it, right? To me, at least from my perspective, using this particular line and accepting it at face value and just applying it for literal power scaling terms, but not doing this as a contradiction. And if we can both agree and see the problem with using this literally, I think we should both be able to see the problem with using this literally. And if we can agree on that, then we've just agreed in general that we just need to be careful with the approach to Databooks overall. We just need to like double check and see how it lines up with what we're seeing in the manga. That's it. Okay, sorry, I got quite a few messages to catch up on. So let's see. The jellyfish, the secondary source, is a really good point, though. I appreciate it. Darth Magog says, I unironically believe that if the plot demanded it, Kid Naruto would be able to kick and to trick and box out Madara Uchiha. I mean, maybe. Like, I think, honestly, with that particular example, fucking... what's his name? Kurama really doesn't want Madara to capture him again or to like manipulate him again. So Kurama might actually give him like a free hall pass for like a single use KCM2 mode to just like box with Madara and then go back to hating him afterwards. Sorry, I asked about the Discord. Haku's statement is literally strong as the plot demands. Of course, it's what is the weapon equivalent of a plot armor? Just like a plot nuke, I guess. Ryoban Nigami says, yes, but the issue is that almost every jutsu that's said to be impossible to escape is directly shown to be escaped in the manga. Yeah, a great example, I could pull this out afterwards if you like, is in the third data book. Datara's clay clone is said to be inescapable, but of course, Sasuke gets away from it. My favorite one is the transfer seal of Matarasu, which is the one that Itachi puts in Sasuke's eye that triggers automatically on Obito. It says that there is no jutsu to escape its fury and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of jutsu like that look, the overall intention is clear to me. The purpose of these databook entries is to try to describe the overall, like, I guess, aura of the jutsu and how it's intended to work. Here's a good example. Like, I glaze Pain. Like, Pain is like my favorite character to represent from like a debating standpoint, I guess. I think he's I fucking told you. He's super powerful. I really like him. But let's look at the Asura path, right? Like the Asura path, wait, hang on. Here we go. The Shurado Asura path, this is from the fourth data book, has this attack over here. Where is it? The enemy undergoes a certain death attack, right? So, like, as far as I'm aware, the Asura path hasn't killed anyone on panel. It did, I think, rip Jiraiya's arm off, and it was going to kill Choji. And so maybe in that situation, like, if the missile it was firing at Choji did actually hit Choji, that would have been a certain death. But I mean, like, it wasn't a certain death attack because Choji didn't die, because Kakashi blocked it. And really, as much as I want to glaze Pain all day, I'm never going to say with a straight face that that Pain has infinite AP, or could, like, if he fired one of his little missiles at Kaguya and hit her in the face, that it would blow her head off. Like, I'm not going to, like, sit here and actually say that, right? So it's just another one of those things. the Discord, the databook, a midgrid says, then that means the information on the second source is being contradicted by a canon source, and that specific bit of information can't be taken as literal. Yeah, I think we're basically aligned on the core principle there. I would just take it one step further and be like, I would just not go in the first place assuming that the shit is true, if that makes sense. I would just like take every single statement with a grain of salt and see whether or not it's true. Like just test it. That's really all I'm advocating for. That being said, I've started making my way through the Naruto movies, and I kind of want, like for personal reasons, I kind of want the secondary or tertiary or whatever like material to be true, because there's some really cool and fun shit in the movies. In the Naruto, what the hell is it called? Like Defenders of the Crescent Moon Kingdom or something like that. There's a scene where Naruto is going after the like a villain, and he has a Rasengan, and he's like jumping forward, and or he's being carried on somebody's back, like piggyback, I think. But anyway, he's like lunging forward towards an enemy, and as he's doing so, the light from the moon reflects into the Rasengan, and it turns like purple black, and it becomes a lunar Rasengan. It's never really explained if that's just cosmetic, or but like the sound effect changes and the graphics changes. I think it grows bigger. So I love the idea that Naruto can harness the power of the moon to be able to like enhance his attacks. I want him to have that ability, and also it kind of like opens up the avenue for interesting fan theories. Now, granted, I think this was a pre-Shippuden movie, so let alone like a pre-fucking Boruto movie. So Tonari hadn't been introduced yet, but now that we know Tonari and the Tenseigan are up on the moon, it does open up like fun avenues for fan speculation about like, what was Tonari sending him some chakra or something? I don't fucking know. But you know, it's more fun. It's like more interesting if we include that stuff. But I also like, if I'm in a debate against somebody and they're like, oh yeah, Naruto is at least small planetary because that Rasengan had the power of the moon, and the moon is this big, and I'm like, no, come on, you can't fucking do this to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you would like to join the Discord, feel free to join the Discord. No pressure. I only check it once every day or two, just because like I used to have it on my phone and I was like completely addicted to being on Discord all day, and so I have to keep it off of my other devices. It's only on my like streaming computer, which I usually just check either once in the morning or once at night. So please feel free to join Discord. I would love to have you there. Feel free to send me a private message, and this goes for everybody, by the way. I'm more than happy to continue the discussion on Discord. Just please be patient with me if I take a little while to get back to y'all, because like I have to I really have to set boundaries with digital stuff. So let's see. Midgrid also says that's just primary canon contradicting secondary canon sources, which the secondary canon source can be taken as being non-literal or hype language. Yeah, that's a great phrase for it. I like the phrase hype language, and I think that term hype language can apply to other things too. So I don't know if you saw my Itachi versus Pain video where I was talking about like the debate between Swag Kage and Noodles. But if you've seen their debate as well, or you've heard other debates about like Pain versus other characters, you've probably heard people mention that phrase like Pain is the strongest member of the Akatsuki or something like that. And I do think he is, but I also think there are arguments for Itachi and for others beating him, and Obito as well. Let me see if I can find this. I should just have it locally, but I don't remember. Yeah, I think it's literally just this here, right? I'm sure you guys have seen this before, from chapter 364. Strongest man in Akatsuki pursues Naruto next time in pursuit of Itachi. And if you've seen my video, you know I fucking like talk about this for 20 minutes. But basically, there was a disagreement between Swag and Noodles about whether or not to use this, and I personally think that this is consistent with Pain's overall character and strength and everything, so I think it's fine to use it to a certain extent. But also, it is kind of a statement that, like, you know, if you ever watch Dragon Ball Z, like at the ends of the episodes, like you would sometimes hear statements like, on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z, Krillin and Gohan go up against the invincible Frieza. And you know, like, especially in retrospect, that Frieza's not fucking invincible. But in the context of that interaction, yeah, like Gohan and Krillin are not going to beat him. And in the context of everything we've seen in the series so far, like, nobody has come close to his power yet. So it makes sense that that hype statement is appropriate for hyping up that moment. And similarly here, like, I think it's worth considering a statement like this, but also take it with a grain of salt, right? Because it's an official piece of content that's in an official publication, so it's legitimate, it's canon, and also maybe this is the sort of place where you would put something in that's hyped. The thing that I got pissed about with Noodles for was just that he was like indirectly, was that he was like, um, he made the positive assertion that this was just an editor's note, and since it wasn't written by Kishimoto, it had to be discarded. Which is like, he didn't fucking know who wrote this. He didn't try to substantiate that at all. He's just like, oh well, no, so you can't use this because you don't know that Kishimoto wrote it, and it's like, okay, there's a whole fucking thing, right? But yeah, I think hype statements can creep their way into a variety of different places, and it's important to not just discard them entirely. Well, this is a cool picture. But also just the context again, right? We always just kind of come back to that. What is the context? How does the context work? Sorry, I see your message at the bottom there, and then I'm going to jump back up. Yes, please feel free to share the Discord link. I should actually just start doing so myself, but yes, please feel free. I also want to take a minute to say hi, Dr. Strangle. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hope that you're doing well. I'm going to jump back up and read your earlier messages first, but it's good to see you. Hope you're having a good weekend. Darth Magog says, Arkan the American is pretty awesome. Not a Naruto YouTube, but he's pretty awesome. Does some great Star Wars video essays. Very similar to Sage's Reign, who I too am a fan of. Excellent. Yeah, I'll be happy to check his stuff out. Especially Star Wars is a universe that I don't know as much about. I love the Star Wars stuff that I've seen, but I don't know anything about like the power scaling of the verse really. So I would love to learn from somebody who has the Darth Magog. Oh man, shit! What is it that you say? You said something in one of your videos that was like the approval of the apostate or something like that. Sorry, I'm blanking on the actual phrasing, but that is what I am thinking of. But yeah, so a midgrid says the premise does presuppose that it's valid because it's a canon source, but it also proposes the case that every line exists in its own case-by-case basis, that it should be analyzed. Yeah, okay, cool. So I think, yeah, we're basically on the same page. If it's something that cannot coexist with a manga like Jiraiya's throat toad summoning being supposedly inescapable, then it can be analyzed for tells of hyperbolic or metaphorical language. Yeah, and I actually think it's a good point that you called out the toad mouth bind. I don't know if you saw this earlier in the stream, but I had a list of a few things here that folks who are interested can go look for examples of statements that are like quote unquote problematic or whatever, hyperbolic. And toad mouth bind was one of the first ones that was on the list. So good call out there. I think that the only thing that I think we're in agreement about this overall, it looks like. But I think the only difference between like my perspective and Sage's perspective, maybe your perspective, at least based on the last time I talked to him, which was like a few months ago, was like it's a subtle thing, I guess, but like I'm not willing to start from a position of agreeing with anything. I'm too much of a skeptical bastard for that. I'm going to go in and like look at every single line. If it's just for casual read, then no. But if it's like for a debate or something like that, then yeah, I'm gonna go in and look at every single line and see if it fits. So like the fucking one for like the iron sand, right? The thing that I was objecting to about Sasori's iron sand was that it said that like since every grain of sand is coated. This is in the third data book, by the way, at 259. So something along the lines of since every grain of sand is coated in poison, it is impossible to defend against. And it's like, then above that, it says, Sasori commands the sand. And obviously, I'm not going to have a problem with Sasori commanding the sand, but I am going to have a problem with the second one because it clearly contradicts what is happening in that fight. If I remember correctly, Sakura like literally just punches it away. So it's pretty much like you're saying, line by line, take everything in context. Sorry. Darth Magog says, yeah, that's an easy one since we see Itachi and Kisame escape it with Amarasu. Yeah, exactly. Dr. Strangle says the only time I have a problem with the innocence until proven guilty approach is why is it being used to say it's true, so I don't have to investigate it. Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like, um, we were talking about this before, right? That like, and you actually helped point this out and help me understand it better. There is it the inherent risk of something like this, of saying like, well, we're only going to investigate this if we see an immediate problem with it, is that the effectiveness of that strategy is always going to be limited by your ability to perceive the problems. So like, I'm going to accept everything in the data book until I see something that's hyperbolic, and then I'll know that it's wrong because it's clearly hyperbolic. Well, what about the things that you don't immediately recognize as being hyperbolic but actually are, right? So you have to have, I guess you could call it humility or skepticism. I'm not sure what the right term would be, but like the awareness that your own, and this goes for me too, it's not just you, right? It's everybody. That your own ability to detect and perceive a bullshit basically may be limited. And so it's not just testing when you see things go wrong, it's also being aware that there may be unknown unknowns, and just developing a practice that tests for that as well. Oh, sorry, by the way, I think I forgot, like, fucking YouTube just annihilates links, right? So let me see if I can post it, because we went through this last time, right? You tried to send it and then it didn't work. So how do I do this? Members. What the hell? Okay, one second. I'm trying to get an invite link. Invite people. There we go. Okay. Copy. Okay, let me see if this works. This is... Oop. Okay, so try that. Anybody who would like to join the Discord, please feel free to click the link. Also, feel free to send me a message. My Discord is just the same thing. It's just on the Maven, one word, like no spaces in between the words and everything. So, more than happy to chat with people offline as well. And I should just get into the habit of like posting this with a bot or something, but that would require effort, of course. Sorry, it says one example I give to someone in the past is that Astro Boy, the mighty Atom, my beloved son, is called Osamu Tezuka's strongest / greatest creation. Oh my god, the Phoenix is omnipotent. So yeah. Sorry, have you seen? That reminds me. Have you seen Your Movie Sucks YMS's video on Kimba the White Lion, which is a whole fucking trip? But he talks about Tezuka and his work as well. A little spicy if you're a Tezuka fan, but very, very interesting either way. Epistemic humility, Dr. Strangle says. Yes. That's a good way of putting it. I like that phrase. Saria says, yes, it was pre-Shippuden. That is my favorite Naruto movie. Hikaru, it's never too late. Yes, exactly. Naruto summons an army of clones to cushion the fall. That was so good. Yeah, he manages to catch everybody. It reminded. Do you ever see that fucking that like fucking Snorlax is fucking helping everybody in this movie? Snorlax fucking owns you. You remember that shit? That's what I was thinking of. Naruto with his clones, just like catching all the Pokemon. It's really great. Yeah, there was a lot of downtime in that movie. I guess I get bored easily, so I kind of watched it like on a higher speed, but then I would slow down at moments like that. And like befriending the saber-toothed tiger, and his relationship with the little kid and the monkey and everything. There was some really heartwarming moments in there. I didn't really like the Stone of Galel as much. I mean, there were definitely like fun parts to it, but the design of like the armor and the sword that the like Naruto's friend, companion, whatever was wearing weren't my favorite. I really like the Clash in the Land of the Snow. I like Blood Prison, and I'm watching Shippuden the movie right now, and so far it's great for fights. Like the plot isn't like all that amazing or anything. Somebody wants a demon to come back and other people don't, and so they're fighting. But like Rock Lee has a fight against like this weird kind of, I don't know, spider dude who drinks some fucking snake piss and becomes like a real fucking menace, like bringing up lava from the ground. And Rock Lee eats a piece of chocolate which he doesn't know is like drugged essentially and goes into drunken boxing mode, which reminds me, um I always wondered about that. Like, if drunken boxing is such an incredible asset, why didn't Guy at any point teach Lee to harness that? Like, at least to give him like an escape route or something. Like, obviously there are risks associated with it, and it was kind of like a bit of a gag at the time, a bit of a joke. But at the same time, if it's end of the world shit and that genuinely enhances his abilities, and he's already like teaching him how to use the gates and stuff, which is extremely risky and taxing to his body, why wouldn't he like have him develop this technique that he's already super deep into? And I wonder if it's because they ran into some issues with censorship, specifically in the West, with like, well, you can't teach kids that drinking is a power up, right? Like, I think that's why they changed it to the super creepy fucking private potion. Lee ran away with Tsunade's private potion. It's so fucking creepy. That translation is awful. It's fucking awful. But anyway, like, yeah, Dr. Strangle says it's almost as if drunken boxing was kind of a gag. Yeah, that makes sense. That being said, though, in the movie, Guy does tell Lee exactly that. He's like, okay, you can only use this if it's a super ultra mega turbo edition, turbo championship edition emergency, and you have no other options. And then he pops the chocolate bomb. Yeah, it's a chocolate bomb, sorry. He pops that, and he goes into drunken boxing mode. Not for very long, but it is pretty badass what he manages to pull off. So it's cool that, I don't know why I thought the Naruto movies just like were kind of hated overall, but there's a wide spectrum. Like, I'm on number 5 now, and there are some that are much like slower paced and story focused. There's some that are much more action paced. Those are pretty fucking brutal. Like, not to spoil anything, but there's a part where a certain character in the one that I'm just watching manages to essentially crush another character, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and the character just like spurts and like rains gore everywhere. And it's very much like one of Gaara's like sand coffin attacks from part 1 in the Forest of Death. It's like, oh, we really went there. Okay. I think I talked about that last week, right? Like, some of the movies like return to some of the brutality of the early Naruto stuff, and I was like, I had gotten conditioned away from this. I was not expecting that, but like, yep, there's blood over there, there's a piece of brain over there. Like, it was really fucked up. So yeah. In advertisement, oh right, so that's a good way of putting it as well, Dr. Strangle. In advertisement, that is not called hype but puffery. So yeah, that statement in the promotional material for the last, where it says like Toneri is the strongest enemy. That's another good example, right? I think it would be fair to call that puffery, right? That's not the sort of thing where, even though it's officially sanctioned or whatever, that we should just accept that at face value. We should call that puffery, right? And I think we talked about that last time as well. But let's see. It's a chocolate bomb's also kind of a gag. 8th grade drunkenly with fire. Yeah, absolutely. And can you imagine if he was just able to like sustain it, like achieve a little bit more consciousness and just sustain that that power for a longer period of time, as opposed to just being a burst. You just ate something. What was it? Yeah, yeah, exactly. He goes hard, and then he gets like. Well, I guess that's the downside of it, right? Is that he gets really loopy and goofy afterwards, and then he bonks his head on a log and then kind of snaps out of it. So it's like maybe not sustainable, maybe not healthy. I guess he doesn't want to make his kid into an alcoholic too. I wonder if the 8 kids would sober him up. Yeah, that's an interesting point. No. Now I'm wondering if somebody could put a genjutsu on Lee to make him feel like he was drunk, like use hypnotic suggestion essentially to make him feel intoxicated and give him the same kind of like reduction in inhibition and spontaneity that he would normally have while drunk without having the actual physical side effects. That would be interesting. Okay. So, with that being said, I am going to write down a timestamp real quick. I think we're going to get started with the main topic in just a moment. And let's see where we at. We're at 121. Okay. So, with all that being said, let us dive into an examination of some of the specific jutsu and the specific arguments that are made often in support of Lightspeed in Naruto. So the main ones that I want to talk about are, well, I want to talk about the Heavenly Transfer in a little bit, just to give some context, because as I mentioned before, Heavenly Transfer is the only instance where we see the phrase speed of light actually written out in the manga, as far as I could see, as far as I could find. But in addition to that, we have statements from characters like Haku, or like about characters from the Databooks, like Haku, like Itachi's Waterfang Bullet, like Kirin, and also Kakashi's use of the Raikiri being a lightning speed attack, the Lariat, Light Fang, Light Slash, and then of course Urashiki's movement. I'm not sure if we'll get to all of these tonight. Anything that we don't, we'll go to next week, and then we'll talk about the novels next week too. I haven't read the, what is it called, Innocent Heart, Demonic Blood, is that what it's called, the Haku novel? I haven't gotten around to that yet, so we might have a third episode next week. We'll see how it goes. So the Haku topic should go by pretty quickly because we already talked about him previously. We please feel free to check out the last couple of streams where we talked about Haku's mirrors and all the mechanics involved in there. So what I wanted to talk about specifically was the databook description that we just kind of went over, so very briefly go back to that, but also to talk about what the implications are of Haku being the speed of light, right? Because it's also about not just examining the context of the fight itself, but then thinking about the broader context of the series as a whole. What are the effects that something like this being true have on the entire series, and what are the effects that it has on our approach to power scaling as a general rule, right? So, or a general topic. So let's go back real quick. And let's just look at the Haku fight. Not the whole thing, we're not going to go like through every panel, but I want to look at a couple of things very briefly. And I think it was on chapter 22 that it starts, maybe 24. Okay, so here they're back on the bridge. So let's look at the databook statement and let's point out a couple of things. One is, for Haku, it's possible to move between the mirrors at the speed of light. Okay, so this is something that does kind of wind up being a bone of contention sometimes when you hear people debating this topic, is that if I were to say, okay, look at over here, Haku is being countered by Sasuke or Naruto, and we would agree that Naruto or Sasuke are not the speed of light when they're like 12 or 14 or whatever, then sometimes I will hear the response, yeah, I agree with that. However, it just says that for Haku, it's possible to move between the mirrors at the speed of light, right? Which means that he's not always moving at the speed of light, and he's only moving specifically between the mirrors at the speed of light. He's not moving at the speed of light just in general on his own. So I want to try to look for that real quick, and then I also want to look for this phrasing over here. It's impossible to see attacks sent out from this literal light speed movement. So if we're going to take this phrasing here, literal light speed movement, as at face value and as true, then we should probably be willing to consider whether the rest of the sentence that comes from it is true as well, right? So let's just take a quick look. I want to go back to the manga over here and point out a couple things. First of all, outside the mirrors, without his Sharingan, Sasuke does manage to perceive and counter an attack from Haku. When we talked about that last time, that there's a bit of a back and forth where sometimes it seems like Sasuke's on top, sometimes it seems like Haku's on top, etc., etc. So we don't need to spend too much time going over that specifically. But, Zabuza here is kind of surprised. Haku, however, is kind of using this initial setup to try to get Sasuke into position for the Thousand Stinging Needles of Death. So even though it seems like Sasuke has the upper hand, really Haku kind of does. And Sasuke manages to use this ability, like he focuses chakra on his feet and jumps out of the way, and he's able to put pressure on Haku and then get in behind him. So they're relative here, and it seems like Sasuke overall outmaneuvers him and outpaces him initially. Right? So this is before Haku gets into the mirrors. Now Haku starts taking things a bit more seriously, and then puts the mirrors in place, and then when he kind of steps into the mirrors, he now shows up in all the mirrors apparently simultaneously. He gets intercepted by Zabuza, right? And he says, now let me show you some real speed. So I think that from this point forward is where we start evaluating Haku potentially being light speeds. Sorry, Sorry, it says Sasuke's a bottom to Sakura canonically. Um, I demand evidence for this immediately. I need to see a scan. Wait, actually, maybe post it in Discord as opposed to on the stream. Um, so this actually, we talked about this last time as well, but this is one of the, I think, most explicit and clear examples of a blitz in the entire series that I can think of, is that um, apparently Haku manages to slice through Sasuke's arm before Sasuke even realizes what happens. He reacts to it after the fact. We see like the gash on his arm and then this blood spurt and then the same thing over here. I mean, granted, his eyes are closed and he's kind of defending himself, but I don't think he's capable of perceiving or seeing anything that's happening here. And this does seem to fit the description of it being impossible to. Oh wait, no, hang on. It being impossible to see attacks sent out from this literal light speed movement, right? I think that seems to be on par with what we're seeing so far. So let's just keep that in mind. Going forward, Sasuke is being tormented by these surface level attacks, but then this happens. Okay, so Sakura throws in a kunai, and Haku manages to perceive it and catch it, but then Naruto throws a shuriken, and Haku perceives it coming in, and he sees it, and he obviously doesn't want to get hit by it. It's like right at his neck, and he tries to get away from it. You can see the motion lines and everything, but he still gets hit by it. So now we have like a really weird kind of setup where Haku, apparently in going between his mirrors, can move at quote unquote the speed of light in a way that can't be perceived at all, but also he can get hit by a shuriken that he sees coming from, like, I don't know, multiple feet away, maybe couple dozen feet away. Maybe he only perceives it once it's like a couple of feet away from his head, but he can't move like that fast. So does that mean then that the shuriken is moving faster than the speed of light? And if so, if we use like force equals mass times acceleration, how much fucking power is going in behind the shuriken? Wouldn't it be quite a lot, quite extraordinary? And then of course it hits Haku, he falls out, and this shuriken manages to knock Haku out of his mirrors. So again, going through this quickly because we spent a long time talking about it last time. Naruto jumps in. Sasuke over here is trying to figure out what exactly is happening with the mirrors. He doesn't quite understand it yet. But then he tries to destroy it, right? Naruto tries to go after it all at once. And you can see this over here. We talked about this for a while with the water glob and everything, that Haku manages to attack and defeat all of Naruto's clones before they reach any of the mirrors. So obviously he's like vastly faster. Then Haku says this: the technique I'm using is part of the art of teleportation, which I think has been established, although I could be challenged on this for sure. The art of teleportation here is referring to Shunshin, right? So basically what he's saying is not that he's literally teleporting, but that he's using essentially a form of body flicker to move very quickly between the mirrors. Body flicker is still physically moving your body, so if he's body flickering at the speed of light, then that is still light speed movement, so that wouldn't be a debunk or anything like that. However, if we move down, I do want to see what happens when Haku starts to throw attacks at them that start to be dodged or blocked or anything like that, right? So we skip over some of the Zabuza stuff, get back to the Haku stuff. Shouldn't take too long. Okay, so here we start to have a bit of an issue because Haku at this point, you can notice that like there are lines that are coming out of Sasuke and Naruto. They're no longer Haku is no longer just dashing past them and like slicing or slashing at the surface of the skin. Now Haku is actually throwing Senbon at them and it's piercing their skin. And they're big fucking needles that are actually like tunneling into their bodies. But despite the fact that he is now like going more lethal with them, taking this more seriously, Sasuke is still able to perceive the attacks and he's starting to react to them. So even here, he starts to activate his Sharingan. Sasuke says, stay frosty, focus, and look through the illusion, right? And after he says look through the illusion with the Sharingan, he then manages to dodge out of the way. And then Haku says he wasn't fooled or even confused, right? And he does actually manage to see an attack. And specifically, you can say, okay, well, this isn't light speed movement because this isn't Haku himself moving between the mirrors. This is Haku like throwing the Senbon or something like that. But the problem is that going back to the first data book, we have this phrase that it's impossible to see attacks sent out from this literal light speed movement. So that would mean that the attacks that Haku is sending out, not just his movement, are being described as light speed as well. And here, even though they're being described as being impossible to see or react to or anything else, right? Sasuke does it. So the fact that Sasuke can see, perceive, whatever, react to this light speed movement, and then Naruto does the same thing later on, kind of debunks the validity of this databook entry in the first place, because it's just like literally doing what it says is impossible to do. When you then add that to the fact that, what the hell? When you then add that to the fact that we have these lines about Sasuke, like about seeing through the illusion, right? And I would encourage you, we're not going to do this right now, but like, unless people really want to, but go and read his fight with Lee, like the first time they meet, and how he tries to see through Lee's jutsu, but he's not able to because it's pure taijutsu. And then go and check out when he the whole conversation that Zabuza and Kakashi have during their first fight, where Zabuza is convinced that Kakashi is like reading his future, like reading his mind, like getting in his head, and then it's kind of revealed later, based on Haku's analysis, that it was actually a combination of hypnosis and genjutsu and stuff like that, and it was all a trick. So and then finally, remember one of the first things that Kakashi tells us is to read the hidden meanings within the hidden meanings. A big theme of this arc in particular is specifically, like, and then again, here, like, Naruto perceives this attack coming out from the mirrors and manages to react to it and repel it and stuff like that and dodge away and then intercept Haku before he gets to the mirror and stuff like that, right? So putting all of that together, it really does seem to me like, I'm not saying that light speed here is debunked. I'm not saying that Haku isn't moving light speed. And in fact, if you personally believe that Haku does move at the speed of light, I would say that, like, if you want to believe that Haku dashes from mirror to mirror in the first part of the scene where he's dashing past Sasuke and like grazing him, then I actually don't really have a problem with that, because characters can use a variety of different jutsu to enhance their mobility, and like, yeah, it's something that happens like so quickly that maybe that's the case. The one final debunk I would try to insert here is that just keep in mind that if we are going to use any kind of real world physics, if we're going to include stuff like F equals ma to make our calcs, think about the amount of kinetic energy that is going to be behind this Senbon when it's moving at the speed of light, and think about what that would actually do to like a kid's arm and body and stuff like that if it actually made contact with it. Like, and we'll get into this more with the Water Fang bullet, but actually, like, consider the amount of force that would be behind a piece of metal thrown at the speed of light and what it should be doing to Sasuke. And since it's not doing that to Sasuke, what does that mean about Sasuke's durability, etc., etc.? So, to me, I just don't think, if you look at all of this stuff together, you look at all the variables, you look at all the different angles, like, pun intended, I guess, it doesn't feel safe or reliable to me to say that Haku is the speed of light based on this, from a power scaling perspective. From a casual perspective, if you want to look at that, at this particular feat and say that he is, okay, I'm not going to be mad about that. But when it comes to debating and stuff like that, no, I don't think that this is demonstrably the speed of light. I don't think that this statement here is credible when you compare it to what's happening. And even if that were, like, my points there were more contentious or whatever, I still say that there's enough of a variable introduced by all this, like, seeing through the illusion, confusion, and deception, all that stuff, that it's like, there's more going on here than the characters probably understand, or that we even really know about, right? Like, this is an illusory technique used by deceptive ninjas. I don't know if we even have all the data. Even Kakashi's never seen this technique before. It's more interesting to me that it's a more complicated thing than just him moving at the speed of light. Anyway, that was a bit of a long ramble, so let me catch up on chat real quick. I'm not trying to ignore you guys. I just want to make sure that I like get complete thoughts out and then return to the chat. Right? It's easier to timestamp and stuff like that. So hope you don't mind. Sorry, it says it's a chocolate bomb. Yes, now I really want one. I have to get some more for my partner. A little while ago, we found these like hot chocolate bombs that have there's like a outer shell and then powder on the inside, and so it's like a mixture of like drinking chocolate but then actual like powder hot chocolate, so it's like kind of two in one, and you just drop it in like hot milk or hot water, whichever you prefer, and then you let it melt and kind of stir it up. Oh, it's so good. I gotta find some more. My source is that I made it the fuck up. Yeah, exactly. That guy's name is Senator Armstrong, I think, and he that character, just like Kojima is so or like games associated with Kojima, so often the case, he unfortunately predicted much of government politics. I don't want to get into it, but yeah, it's kind of oddly terrifying and oddly hilarious if it weren't so terrifying, just how accurate like that portrayal of like the America elemental that is Senator Armstrong like wound up being. But yeah, I think specifically that was from, was it Maxor's video? It's not actually a quote in the game, although it would totally fit in the game. But yeah, let me see. Oh, for your source on the bottom thing, yeah. Dr. Strangle says, how I translate that statement that is pointing to the left panel of Haku Databooks scan is every single piece of Haku's figure. Under those circumstances, it can be said that it's impossible. Yeah, I think you might have shared that with me before. Under those circumstances, it can be said that it's impossible to see Haku's offensive. Makes so much more sense. I think, like, really what I should do is, whether it's from you or somebody else, I think I should, like, get different translations and actually like talk at some point. It might be nice to do this. It might be nice to get like folks who know Japanese and who are willing to hop on VC, and for one of these streams just do like a talk through of a few different like commonly misunderstood like mistranslations, and talk through people's different interpretations and see like, okay, well, I'm translating this kanji this way for this reason, and this could mean something. If this character is next to this other character, then it means something different, and so that's why I wouldn't use this. Like, I would love to have that conversation, because I mean, my options are like, I don't know Japanese beyond some conversational stuff. Like, I can ask where the train is or whatever. But yeah, that's so. I went to Japan a few years ago, and because I'm a massive fucking nerd, I found out that Mount Kongo from Sekiro is a real place, and so I had to go. And because I also don't plan correctly, my partner and I like went up on the mountain, and we hiked all the way up, and then we hiked all the way back down, and then like didn't realize that there was only like one bus left or one train left, and then if we didn't catch it, we were going to be like basically stuck on the mountain all night. So thankfully we found a person, and I was able to communicate just barely enough for him to point us to the right bus to get back to town. But yeah, so my nerdery is a double-edged sword for sure. Dr. Strangle says, every single piece of ice, Haku's figure, under these circumstances, it can be said that it's impossible to see Haku's offensive. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that feels like a really like natural translation. Saria says, John is encouraging reading my streamers watched. Yes, this is going to keep happening. I know that you're you seem shocked by this, but multiple times now on stream I've admitted that I read books using my ears, but I read books nonetheless. I'm even in a book club where I talk to other human beings who also, and you might want to sit down for this, but read read books. I'm sorry if this means that I've fallen off the deep end, but I can't help it. Can't help myself. I can't listen to just YouTube Naruto debates all the time. Although I will say that this week I've pretty much only listened to YouTube Naruto debates. I listened to I've been going back and listening to the Apollo versus Noodles debate, and I think I do want to talk about it maybe in a few weeks, because I think I mentioned this last time, but like when we talked about it before, I was basically focusing mostly on the debunks of like the Bijou control and stuff like that. But I want to talk about the actual argumentation as well, like debate tactic stuff, because it's a good one for going over that stuff. Okay, sorry, you can unsubscribe, but understand the only reason that I know what all those little squiggly lines that you wrote there say is because I can read, and I've been reading. And so it's because I read that I know what what you're threatening. So, I mean, is it really that bad? But yeah, I think hopefully I've established that point. So that's point number one, is just I don't think that Haku is demonstrably light speed. Does that mean that he's like fucking turtle tier or whatever? No, it just means he's not demonstrably light speed. Demonstrably light speed. Enunciate. Jesus Christ. Okay. Oh, the tragedy. Are you singing Imagine Dragons at me now? Wow, what have I done to deserve this? But anyway, so next up is Waterfang Bullet. So if you're not familiar with Waterfang Bullet, this is a technique that's used by Itachi, and I think we only see it once in the series. It's important to not confuse Waterfang Bullet with Water Gun, like Noodles did and Swag did in their debate. Water Gun is the Hozuki clan exclusive jutsu that it's when like Gengetsu and whatnot, like when they actually hold their index finger and thumb like a gun and point and shoot with it. So we see Gengetsu do it, we see Suigetsu do it, but that's a different jutsu. That's later on in the series. This is Waterfang Bullet, and we only really see Itachi do it. But of course, there's a databook entry that says it's the speed of light, and then they use this to scale Kakashi and Itachi off of it. Now, I do want to say, like a rip in peace for the original design of Samehada. I love this shit as a kid. In Italian, the way that that this was called, like what Kisame says here, is he doesn't say like, it cuts you to ribbons. In Italian, it's something like La mia spada non taglia, raspa. And like he says that, and like I can hear like the raspiness in his voice. Like, raspa means like shreds, right? Or like rubs roughly against something like that. And so, him like tearing it out like this, and I don't know, that it's like this giant like Dark Souls style great sword. I really don't like the flat fat popsicle look that it got in later parts of the series. It's so iconic, it's so cool here, and I don't know, I really miss this design for Samehada. But anyway, moving on to the Waterfang Bullet, let's just see what happens here if we take a look at it, right? So here's Kakashi. He shows up, he's got the Sharingan, he's about to clash with Itachi, and here's how their fight goes down. They're engaging in a little bit of banter, and let's just get some context from what Itachi is saying over here. If you spar with him head on, you won't get away scot-free, and if you take too much time, you'll give other shinobi a chance to arrive. Do not forget our purpose. You did not come here to suffer injuries. So the overall purpose while they're here is to search for Naruto specifically. They're not really trying to start a war. They don't want to be super big and flashy with everything, but they really just want to try to gain some information. And also then later on, it's kind of revealed that they were showing up and trying to create something of a scene to remind Danzo that they were still like alive, and to kind of telegraph that, or specifically that Itachi wanted to know that he hadn't forgotten about Danzo, and he was like pinging him essentially. But let's take a look at what happens here specifically, and then let's go through the databook statement. Dr. Strangle says, if it is saying it is possible under the circumstance, well, point at a panel. We might want to take a look at that panel. I'm sorry, which particular panel were you thinking of? I think I might have lost track of that. Sorry. Let me know if you want me to look at a specific thing. Happy to go back. I am assuming that you mean about the Haku fight. But yeah, so let's take a look at what happens here. So the idea is that the Waterfang Bullet itself is the speed of light, and that Kakashi is also able to perceive and react to the speed of light, and has a light speed style, like is a light timer or something like that, like vaguely relativistic, I've heard people say. So they're staring at each other. Itachi throws out his shuriken, or not throws out, but he like throws his hand outward. As you can see, like he extends his hand from the cloak. You can see the whatchamacallits, the shuriken in his hand. Sasuke, or fucking Sasuke, Kakashi then says, water wall style, fuck me, why am I stuttering? Suiton Suijin Heki, water style, water wall. Okay, so he's going to cast water wall. He starts casting water wall when he sees Itachi put out his shuriken before the shuriken get thrown out as a defensive measure. And as he is bringing up his water wall, right, then we also see these other like little spiraling corkscrew type things coming out of the water to towards Kakashi, but he has already like started his water wall to block them, right? And so Kakashi says, what speed? I couldn't follow his sign weaving at all. Furthermore, that he would use the shuriken in his right hand as a decoy to distract me while launching a Suiton attack at my feet. Impressive, right? So, and then, you know, this happens as well. Itachi says, trust you, Kakashi, to have such a sharp sense of perception, and manages to, you know, stab Kakashi from behind. Of course, this is a water clone, but, Itachi's was also a clone, and Kakashi manages to get out of the way, etc. So there's this very, very fast exchange where they're going back and forth between one another. But I think it's worth noting that Kakashi starts preparing a water wall before he has, like, potentially, arguably, before he has perceived that the water fang bullet specifically is attacking him. So it's not like he necessarily saw the water fang bullet specifically, processed that, then decided I better counter this with a water attack. It's more like he was like, shit, something is coming, I better wall up, and then defends with this particular attack. But then there's an ongoing exchange where he does other stuff too. So with that being said, let's hop over and look at the description in the second data book. Let me check chat real quick first. Top left panel of the Haku scan. Which one is that? Oh, did you post something in Discord? Oh, wait, one sec. I don't see anything. This thing over here? Top left panel. Or of here. The Databooks calls it the water boat light speed because it's fast and moves in a straight line. Okay, that could be. Yeah, so let's just take a look at that. Water style, water wall, throws a bottle of water at my sister. Oh no. Well, are you trying to, you still trying to retaliate on her for drinking fucking pickle juice? I don't blame you. Right out of the jar too, huh? Okay, well, searching for Fang apparently is not going to do us enough. Okay, so. The Haku Databooks scan, I'm sorry. This thing over here, demonic mirroring ice crystals, Makyo Hyo Sho, the abominable and tremendous ability. It is said that no method in existence can defeat this technique. That's what you were referring to when you're saying that, like, the it's impossible to see Haku's offensive. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think you, from what I have seen of the manga and what we've talked about, I think your translation fits better than this one, if that makes sense. Hopefully I'm representing what you're saying correctly. And I remember before when you were trying to get me to figure out that your other name was Acolyte, and it took me like 2 hours to try to like solve your jester's riddle, and I still couldn't fucking figure it out. Sometimes it takes me a minute, sometimes I'm a little dense, so no worries there. Okay, so let's take a look at what this jutsu description says. Water release, water fang bullet, Suiton Suigadan. B rank offensive, users Itachi. Lightning fast bullets gathered from water. Okay, that's interesting. So this translation actually says lightning fast bullets gathered from water. They come out of a blind spot and gore the enemy. A technique to deal physical damage to the enemy with a liquid mass brought forth from underwater. Its power to kill and maim is augmented by adding a spitting motion to the compactly pressured water. During fights on water, taking advantage of its characteristic ability to attack from anywhere in a 360 degrees radius, in conjunction with other jutsu for distraction, confusion, and so forth, this technique has an extensive array of applications. Depending on the methods of use, such as launching an attack from underfoot to avert the opponent's attention, the field of strategies will expand far and wide. So I think this actually gives us a great example of how a databook statement can potentially inform us and give us great information, but also potentially mislead us if we take things too literally. So everything that is said here, I think, very accurately maps to what we see during the fight. And we get a lot of detail as well about, like, okay, the reason why these were visually designed with this corkscrew or like swirling pattern is to indicate that the spiraling and twisting nature of it was making the bullets more powerful, because really bullets will then fire out of these. They're not just vortexes or whatever. They're not just like, you know, water spears. There are bullets that will actually get shot out of these things, and the twisting and spiraling of them is kind of like a rifle, right? It's helping with the, I don't really know how rifles work, like it's helping with the spin or something, and creating more pressure so that the bullets pop out explosively, quote unquote. And then it's also talking about all the tactical considerations, being able to attack from different directions, from underfoot, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I think we're getting a lot of really useful information here. And then we get to this phrasing about lightning fast. Well, again, if you think that Kakashi is lightning speed at this time, I guess this statement wouldn't necessarily be all that controversial. I do think I have I've seen a translation for this, that the Waterfang bullet is light speed. One second. Let's see. And yeah, so again, coming from like a random Google search, who knows how accurate this is. I don't know if this translation is accurate, but I have seen this specific thing used in debates before, and I think this specific scan was the one that's Swag and fucking Noodles were debating in their conversation as well, right? So I think, oh yeah, we'll talk about that stuff as well. So I think, you know, whether, so the first question is, which of these translations is more accurate? Speed of light or speed of lightning, because there's obviously a difference between those two things. That being said, what does it matter really when we haven't yet evaluated whether the statement is hyperbolic or not? So to me, based on what we've seen with other databook statements we talked about, and based on what we see about this particular scene, I don't see any reason to believe that we should take this literally, right? That it is literally the exact speed of lightning. Because what does that even mean? Are we going to assume that this means the downstroke or return stroke of cloud to ground lightning specifically? Or are we going to assume that it meets some other like lightning speed criterion? Are we going to pick whichever one is fastest for our purposes or slowest to be safe and lowball? Or is it worth just saying that this is an imprecise term? It just means it's really, really fucking fast. The fact that some people are translating it as lightning and some people that are translating it as light, and that it's in like the bold super description, so to speak, like the summary or whatnot, as opposed to the paragraph itself, and that there's a clear distinction between this description and then this more like sort of practical description down here, that we can just say this is not meant to be taken literally, and there's not an actual literal measurement for this in the manga, so we shouldn't assume that it is lightning speed, and definitely shouldn't assume that it's light speed based on all of this. That being said, there is one other thing that I want to consider, and this starts to get into like slightly narrative territory, I guess you could say. So keep in mind, let me see if I could find this thing for us real quick. Okay, I saw this video recently that was like, sorry if there is a spike in volume. I will try to keep it quiet, but I'm not sure. So what was it called? Grain of sand at light speed, something like that. Right? Okay. So it might get a little loud. Sorry, I'll try to mute it.
Let's zoom in on this grain of.
Let's
zoom in on this grain of sand.
Yeah, here we go. So let's take a look at this. There's a bunch of channels that do stuff like this. This is Action Lab Shorts, and let's just play this and see what happens.
And shoot it at 99.9% the speed of light at the Earth. But let's calculate how much energy it actually has. Now, it was going 99.9% the speed of light, so that means that its Lorentz factor was 22.5. So that means that I need to calculate whatever its kinetic energy was, I multiply it by 22.5, because it was going at relativistic speeds. And if you do that, you calculate that you get around 20 terajoules of energy. That's about how much energy is in the fuel of a jet airliner. So basically, imagine a plane exploding in the sky, and that's how much energy this grain of sand would have when it hit the sky. So it looks like a small explosion happened, but not really much damage. That's not that impressive, so let's shoot Halley's Comet at it at 99.9% the speed of light. Whoa! Oh man, it just completely vaporized everything here. Let's zoom.
So that's really interesting. I want to see if we can find another one too. One sec.
Hit Earth with a grain of sand at the speed of light. Okay, let's take an asteroid, reduce its size to 1 millimeter, set the speed to 1c, and launch it at the Earth. The moment it impacts, the energy is so intense that you can see the ocean floor being carved up into many fragments and thrown in the air. The average temperature of the Earth immediately doubled. Okay, that's not good. The impact generated a massive shockwave that destroys all vegetation and life as it moves through the continent. This is followed by a massive tsunami, tens of kilometers.
Let's see if we can find one more, because those are two obviously, like, those two are obviously very different.
What happened if a grain of sand hit the Earth at the speed of light? Let's take an asteroid and change its radius to 2 millimeters. And of course, set it to the speed of light. And there
Well,
goes
it's
the
literally
grain of
the speed of
sand.
light.
It's so small you can barely see it. It hit the Earth, but it doesn't seem to have caused much damage.
Okay.
Wow, it opened up a huge crater down here. Okay, now we can see a very strong shockwave. It's spreading across the entire planet.
Okay, so it seems like there might be some discrepancies with the simulations that people are running. I will try to do some more research on this, so I'm not going to like double down on this point. But what I would like to try to consider, right, is that like if you think that like a single grain of sand hitting something at the speed of light could potentially at least like cause a large crater, if not causing a large shockwave, if not causing, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Like, maybe you don't think it hits a tsunami that wipes out the entire fucking country or whatever, but it should contain like a pretty massive payload, and that's just one grain of sand. Think about the mass of like all of this water here. And we could try to do the math here. I'm not great at math, but just like think about how much this must be. Like the individual water bullets, right? They're probably going to have more mass than than a single grain of sand. So even if we said like, okay, these things over here were 1 pound, like if you put all the water fang bullets together and you try to get an estimate of like 1 pound or like the equivalent of one like pinball or something like that, run that simulation and go through and see how much damage that does. Now, just for the sake of argument, you know, understanding that this could be disputed, let's say that it's something on the larger end where it can create a large shockwave that could damage, if not just a large city, then possibly like cause a lasting effect on a small country or something like that, whatever that even means, right? Let's just say it could take out the like New York State or something like that. Okay, keeping in mind that the whole point of Pain going around and gathering up the Bijou is so that he can get all 9 of them, because once he has all 9 of them, he can then put all of them in the Ghetto Mazo, which is the husk of the 10 Tails in Kaguya. And then, once he has essentially his own pet 10 Tails, then he will be at the level he needs to be at to be able to destroy a country with one blast, right? So, I don't think it really makes any sense if we are going to use stuff like F equals MA. Itachi can just casually throw out multiple, it looks like there are at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if he's throwing out like with one attack, one single attack, he's throwing out 5, pounds worth of energy, and they're all going at the speed of light. Think about the amount of damage and devastation that would be able to do. And that's just like with one casual attack. He doesn't seem fatigued or anything like that. He doesn't seem upset like he's out of chakra. So now, what the fuck is Pain doing? Running around, doing all that dumb shit, gathering Bijou and losing all these Akatsuki members, when he could just like bring a little kiddie pool of water and set up like Itachi on the top of a fucking cliff and just have him like artillery bomb people with these water fang bullets, because the payload of energy that they have behind them should be enough to devastate like any of the shinobi villages. He should be able to like destroy the sand village, no problem, as long as he has enough water near him. And that's even assuming that he needs to bring water and can't just like make his own, you know, with a water release or something. So I don't know if we're actually going to accept this feat as being the speed of light, and we're actually going to accept that F equals ma is something that we're using, then that means that there's a very, very, very weird implication for Itachi's overall power output. Of course, I don't ever hear people ever making that argument. I've never heard anybody say that they think like Itachi is continental or whatever, or like even small country level or even mountain level with his water fang bullets, because I think somewhere in there's this recognition that at the end of the day, he's just pushing water around. And like if water itself were to ever get up to that speed, it would just vaporize, right? Like there's no way that water would have the structural integrity to do, or I don't even know if that's the right term for it, but like the physics of it, even if you could get a pellet of water that was the size of a bullet and threw it at something at near the speed of light, the water wouldn't like quote unquote survive. Like its integrity wouldn't be maintained for that long. Now you could argue that maybe he wrapped it in chakra and that strengthened it, and then okay, well maybe. But then how do we reconcile that with what Kakashi is doing? Because Kakashi throws up a water wall jutsu, right? His water wall is a defensive jutsu that's made, presumably it's like drawing from the water around him, right? And they make a point of this in one of the, I know we're not supposed to use the movies, they make a point of this in the Shippuden movie, that like they're expecting, they're fighting some enemies and they expect them to be using fire jutsu, but they're all like Neji and Lee and Naruto and Sakura are all down by the water, so they're like, oh, we'll have an advantage now because they're fire style users, right? So it is like they do incorporate the natural water as part of their attacks. It's not just like purely taking water and transforming it purely taking chakra and transforming the chakra into water. They're actually using the water in the environment as part of their attacks, like water bending, but obviously also using chakra, right? Anyway, Kakashi's water wall here has the ability to survive, like, I don't know, 5 simultaneous tactical nukes like attacking him from all directions, which means that like this is part 1 Kakashi. This is before he ever starts using his Mangekyo, as far as I know. So we get to the point where we get to the war and we have like Bijus firing off Biju bombs left and right. And technically speaking, I think there's an argument that the water wall that Kakashi's using here should be able to tank a Biju bomb. Because they're just like, in terms of the overall amount of energy behind them, it's really not all that impressive compared to like the nuclear levels of payloads behind what should be here if these things are actually moving at the speed of light. Now, of course, you could contest everything I've said. Maybe everything I've said is just like totally bogus, and if you actually do the math, that's totally wrong. That's fine. You can totally look into that. But based on my cursory understanding of this, if you actually consider the amount of energy that would literally be behind this technique, if it is a light speed technique for real, it just doesn't really make any sense, because then like Kakashi's water wall would have to scale higher than some of the shit we see like crazy late into the war. It would just have to be phenomenally strong in a way that doesn't then like what are the implications of that, right? Like if Kakashi has defensive jutsu that are capable of withstanding like nukes, like why is he losing to a Shinra Tensei? Is the Shinra Tensei on that level? Well, the massive Shinra Tensei that blows up the whole village isn't that big, so the smaller ones are probably not that big. But Kakashi, Kakashi could only do this with a water wall, but he also has a mud wall, and his mud wall just sucks and can't like even survive like a city block level Shinra Tensei. It just like shatters and disintegrates. See, once you start building things into like a lattice, into like a, what's the term for it, like a tapestry, it just doesn't make any sense. So I guess the question that we have to ask ourselves is where we're going to put our suspension of disbelief, where we are going to apply real world physics and where we are not going to do so. And for me, I think there's a danger that it becomes a double standard, right? Like people will say, "Oh, you can't apply real-world physics to fictional universes." So when I ask questions like, "Well, if these characters are moving around at the speed of light, how are they still talking to each other? How are we not seeing sonic booms everywhere? How is their skin not getting ripped off with the friction between the air molecules in their skin, etc., etc.?" And the refrain that I hear often is, "You cannot." Oftentimes it's very heated. You absolutely fucking cannot apply real world physics to a fictional universe. Okay, well, what about F equals ma? They're just gonna go ahead and apply that wherever we want, right? Like, what about like things like thermal, like energy transfer, and kinetic energy versus other forms of energy? Are we just like, we're just going to use those? Like if we're calculating like a fireball attack, we're just going to assume that like thermodynamics works the same, right? But we're not going to do that when it's not convenient for us to do that, because then we'd have to change our minds. And that's the kind of shit that I want us to be aware of. Anyway, now catching up on chat. Dr. Strangle says, Naruto University says that some of the time it's translating from, from Portuguese to English and not from Japanese to English. I think also sometimes they go, I think on the fourth data book, it might have said, they go from German to, or Japanese to German to English. Yeah. So translated from German rather than the original Japanese, translated from Portuguese. Yeah. Okay. So that's probably part of the reason why every time you introduce, what the fuck is this? Every time you introduce a new translation, a new variable or whatever, then it's like, yeah, potentially the case. But I think the ones that are translated from German or Portuguese, they have a star. So this one, right, Limbo would be translated from Portuguese, and then the ones with 2 stars would be translated from German. Either way, I think it's time for like, I think I've talked about this before, but I would be willing to pay money, quite a good chunk of money, to commission a community effort for making a new, like a new Naruto translation thing. Like, I would be more than happy to host a website or pay like server fees or whatever to get a website going that was like the new Naruto versity. Not that I want to like throw shade or that I want to like replace this. I think this should stay. It's a great resource. But just for people to go through and have like a more active, almost like wiki style conversation about the various translations and go back and forth and just get some new data in one place. I think I was graciously invited to join this server, like the final Naruto SS, and I think that was part of what they were trying to do. That they're trying to collect as many scans as possible, and it looks like they've done an amazing job. There's a lot of work that's been done here, but I don't know if it also includes translations. I kind of wish there was something like this where it was a well-known, widely shared community thing. Oh yeah, I'm looking here, and it does look like there's some stuff here that's like, here's a translation for Baki Kaze no Yaiba. Yeah. Okay, anyway, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, I kind of wish that was the case. Let's zoom in on this grain of scam. Or he said scan. Gumu Gumu no rifle. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I said we bonded last. Oh, hang on, I'm getting way out of organization. I think the databook calls the water bullet light speed because it's fast and it moves in a straight line. Yep, okay. The Haku databook scan. Sorry, says we bonded last night with your sister, I'm imagining, when she tried to kill a spider on Mist and we lost track of it and freaked out the entire night. Her son, my nephew, found and killed it. I'm sad. I'm a little bit sad about that because I really like spiders. I high-fived a spider that was in my bathroom. I thought about like taking him outside, but then he just kind of like raised up one of his little limbs and like high-fived me. I was like, okay, so you're gonna help me take care of the fruit flies, right? Okay, you can stay. You earned your rent and you can stay. And then let's see, but I'm glad you guys were able to bond about it anyway. Naruto University says that some of the time is oh yeah, we went over that. We usually leave out relativistic effects unless stated in the fictional universe or using them like the Flash's infinite mass punch. That makes sense, yeah. I guess it's a matter again of like how much real world physics we are. It is practical and makes sense and is fair to apply, and I know that can be a hotly contested thing from time to time. Sorry, it says, Dr. Strangle, that's basically me, but a lot of my favorite verses are extremely magical and fantasy in nature, so I don't really take a lot of physics into account unless just doing mental exercises. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. The scan says characters, or water produces speed of light bullet. Okay, cool. I appreciate the having the context for the original text there as well. That is very helpful. Set up a bounty per page. Honestly, that's not a bad idea, especially with the original, with the ones that come up more hotly contested and most frequently. I'd be willing to do that. Well, that's the thing. When I was in Sage's server, I offered to pay for translations, but before before that was accepted, they just kind of had it done. It's hi, I was hoping to have this page translated, and then I hit enter, and then while I was typing out and I'd be happy to make a donation, then I think Hobbs or somebody, it might have even been you yourself, had already generated that for me. Yeah, I wasn't even gonna pretend that I knew what that said. I see the character for no, the second one to the end, I think is no, right? And then I see the sort of sideways J looking thing is a she, if I remember correctly. But I can't remember the rest of them. Okay, I'm going to take a 2 to 4.5 minute break to run to the bathroom, and then we will start talking about the Raikiri. Okay, I'm back. F equals ma, says Dr. Strangle, defines what joules are. F equals ma breaks down near the speed of light. That is what that guy was giving a multiplication factor. Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah. The limits of my math knowledge extend or are defined by anything more complex than plug in a number to this variable and then use this constant or this other variable, and then you get this other number. Like I said, I feel embarrassed because I used to do calculus and stuff, and I used to use math for programming and for I had this whole thing where I was making a game based on racing futuristic car type things. It was vaguely Rocket League plus Wipeout, and I had to do some math for the vehicle controls and get the input vector from the controller and blah blah blah. So I used to be able to do it. It's just been so many years and I haven't practiced at all. So At this point, I would rather like not even try than embarrass myself. Or whatever. So I appreciate the more expert opinion. Saria says, Dr. Strangle, what are your thoughts on fairy tale? I think it is Tail as in like dog tail. I never read it, but I always would see people have insane double standards with it. Like I'd see Nastu eat time space in a panel or something, and people would say continental, but if Goku did something with time space, it was universal. Yeah, I can understand the potential conflict there. Something I would be curious to hear more about is what people are thinking. Like, I've never read Fairy Tail, so I can't really comment on that, but I want to know more about what people think the cracks in time or space-time are that Toneri winds up like sniping out of the like out of space, right? They're like these, they almost look like cracks in glass, and Toneri like grabs them and they shatter. Some people, like, they look at that, they're like, the shit that's going down on the planet is so powerful that it's causing space-time to break, and Toneri is fixing it, and he's like keeping the fabric of space-time together. And they use that to scale them really high, but I couldn't find an exact explanation diegetically, like in the universe, of what that shit actually is. So I don't know if I buy that, just because I don't know what the series is trying to tell us about that feat. But I will say that, like, my personal headcanon, until I find better information, is that Urashiki and the others are trying to like break through and make a portal, like with fucking Yamoto Hirasaka or something, and they keep like trying to put feelers in, either to like spy on Toneri or to transport themselves, and Urashiki or fucking Toneri sees that happening and like stops it from happening. So I don't think it's him repairing space-time so much as it is him like fixing holes that the other Otsutsuki are trying to make to break through, if that makes sense. Which you could argue is the same thing. I don't know. So, I wanted to talk for a second. Sorry if my mouth eating sounds. I know that grosses some people out. I just need to have some food. But specifically want to talk a little bit about Sasuke, and specifically about the Chidori, and about Kakashi, because one of the things that comes up in this discussion, as we were discussing before with Mid-Grid as well, was the idea that certain arguments tend to reinforce each other, and once you kind of have your teeth or like your hooks into one of them, it can be difficult to, I guess, maneuver in a conversation, because I don't want to use the term goalpost shifting as a pejorative, but it's just like, it can be difficult to make progress sometimes when each argument just kind of like folds into the next one. And so, obviously, arguing whether or not Kakashi is lightning speed has nothing to do with any other character being the speed of light intrinsically, right? Like, Haku can be the speed of light while Kakashi is or isn't lightning speed. But sometimes people will use the argument that, like, okay, Kakashi's lightning speed in part 1, therefore, if we take the return stroke of lightning, which is something like a third of the speed of light, if I remember correctly, then Kakashi going from being lightning speed in part 1 or even pre-part 1 to being light speed in as an adult, or especially in part 2 in the war arc, actually isn't really all that crazy, because he's just tripling in speed, right? I'm assuming that I'm correct about that, but I think the return stroke is like a third the speed of light. And if that's true, then that just means Kakashi is getting 3 times faster. And when you put it that way, is that really that crazy? Does it really seem insane or unreasonable that fucking Kakashi got 3 times faster between when he was probably like a teenager versus when he fought Kaguya? I don't think so, right? Or even Obito. It's probably fair to say. So that's why I think, even though on the surface it doesn't immediately seem like it is essential thing to talk about, like light speed, I think it's worth going over at least briefly. Let me see. Dr. Strangle says, I go by the standard of it. If it's a feat, if it doesn't have a related energy/joules amount, then the feat scales to how strong the characters were at the time, if it's not just literally hacks. That seems like a pretty good middle of the road approach. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Yeah. So this is obviously the first time that we see Sasuke use the Chidori, and I think this is also where we hear Guy say something about it being called the Lightning Blade. Yeah, here we go. So this is chapter 114. So Guy says Chidori, also known as Raikiri Lightning Blade. And if I remember correctly, Raikiri literally means like lightning cut, right? Lightning Blade is its nickname because Kakashi once sliced lightning using this jutsu. And Sakura says, slice lightning, what? And then Ino says, sounds so hokey. Choji says, wow. Its formal name is Chidori, and its secrets lie in the almost impossible speed of its stroke and the immense chakra focused in the arm. So, almost impossible is pretty impressive. That transforms it into a blade that can cut through anything. Okay, so before I elaborate on that at all, okay, blade that can cut through anything, almost impossible speed, lightning blade, because it cut. He sliced lightning. Sliced lightning. Okay. So, that all being said, let's just keep all that in mind, not like judge it or anything yet. And let's just see what we can glean about the Raikiri from the first and second data books. I don't even know if there's an entry in both, but let's see. So, first data book says it's an S-rank jutsu used by Kakashi, okay? In one swing, this swift stab turns into a famous blade that can even cut lightning. The one who is said to have copied over 1,000 jutsu, Kakashi's single original technique, this is Raikiri. Guy says that the true nature of this technique is a regular stab, but the amazing time when you see this huge amount of chakra is gathered in the hand, Kakashi's arm becomes a famous blade that can cut through anything. Kakashi, named Konoha's greatest technician, created this ultimate secret art himself. It is really a simple technique perfected by honing it to the limit an artisan's technique. Ending in a single point, this huge amount of chakra is a wonder even to the eyes of the enemy. It predicts a hopeless future. Kakashi Chidori cut lightning. That legend is the origin of the name Raikiri. Okay, so let's see if there's any other mentions. When Kakashi uses Chidori is known as Raikiri. Okay, so this is the Chidori as well. Just kind of scanning through here. Chi noise, which bird voices. Okay, let's see if there's anything here. Raikiri, nothing in there. Okay, so we only really hear about it in the first data book, in that particular regard. And this feat here, like all of this that's happening, is happening up until the first data book. Like we're not going to go into the third and fourth data books because this is obviously before it. Okay, so here are my thoughts on this particular feat. The way that people approach this is by saying that Kakashi cut through a lightning bolt, therefore he must be the speed of lightning. And specifically, in order to illustrate the legend associated with this feat, I think that, I'm not trying to strawman anybody here, but I think when people picture this happening, what they're thinking of is like Kakashi is, I don't know, like on a mountaintop and lightning bolts are falling all around him, and then he sees one land and then he slices out with his arm and he slashes the lightning bolt in two. So he is perceiving this thing happening, he reacts to it, and then he moves and he attacks the thing, and then he succeeds in his attack. Basically, that's the sequence of events. And it's true that particular sequence of events, as I described it, if that's what happened, that would satisfy the condition of what Guy is talking about. In other words, Guy says the reason why it's called Raikiri is because he cut a fucking lightning bolt, and what I just described also fits that description. So those two things are non-contradictory. However, there are other potential... However, more to the point, we don't actually see this happen in the manga. We sort of see it in the anime, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But we never see it actually happen in the manga. Okay? So we don't know what the circumstances were around this event. So it is kind of an assumption to just say, like, well, Kakashi must have, like, perceived the lightning bolt, reacted to it, and sliced it. Unfortunately, we don't really have any direct evidence of that particular choreography. So what's another potential explanation for what happened? Well, that Kakashi had the Raikiri active, and while the Raikiri was active, he got struck by lightning, and his lightning, there was so much power, there was so much chakra attached to his hand that it just, like, either attracted the lightning, intersected it, pierced through it, or whatever, and he came out the other side unscathed. That would also be a way of saying that, like, he sliced through lightning, right? Like, as long as he intersects with lightning in some capacity and his hand is not fucking exploded, but the lightning bolt gets split, then he has satisfied the condition that Guy is describing. So the lightning bolt could have come down from the sky, he could have intersected it while it was already, like, quote-unquote formed, right? It could have been the downstroke of lightning or the return stroke. It could have been one of those instances where the channel forms between the cloud and the ground, and then there's, like, multiple flashes, and he saw the first one, and then he cut, like, the second or third one, right? Like, it's not necessarily the case that he just has this singular, like, lightning reaction, movement, attack, speed, all kind of wrapped up into one. It's also worth considering that I'm not entirely sure that Kishimoto knows how lightning works, or rather, I don't know that he's committed to representing lightning faithfully in Naruto the way that it works in the real world. I will say that up until recently, I thought that lightning kind of worked like I think it's portrayed in a lot of media, where basically energy builds up in a cloud and then the cloud shoots down a bolt, like a thing of lightning, down to the ground. Now, I know that it's more about, like, the buildup of electrical potential, like electrical charge and the discharge of electricity, so I didn't think it was, like, an actual, like, magical, like, beam of energy. I know it's more like, about essentially an electrical circuit or conduit that's forming between two places. I know it's electric based, right? Not like some kind of a fucking magic thing. Just want to be very fucking clear about that. But at the same time, I didn't realize that, like, I didn't know anything about, like, the step leaders. I didn't know anything about, like, the buildup of charge on the ground and how the charge on the ground connects with the charge, or, like, the channels coming off of the ground connect with the channels coming down from the cloud, and then how, like, the big flash that we see is actually from the return stroke and not from the downstroke. If you guys, anybody listening to this, you don't know what I'm talking about, or it seems weird or vague, go look up some videos on how lightning actually works, like cloud to ground lightning. It's actually really weird and cool and counterintuitive, and I still don't fully understand it, even though I've watched, like, a bunch of videos on it, because it's just so weird, and it just, like, it totally flies in the face, or vice versa, I guess. I was going to say it flies in the face of the way that lightning is portrayed in media. Like, the vast majority of, like, fictional depictions of lightning that I've ever seen just do not at all accurately represent what happens. And so you have to ask yourself, like, okay, well, if Kakashi sliced the return stroke of lightning, I mean, like, that's one thing, because that means that he would have seen it, like, start to go up and then slashed it in front of him. But if he sliced the downstroke of lightning, well, does that, like, how did he perceive that? And this is something that I think Abstract Section was talking about on his stream a little while ago. Like, fucking, is he capable of seeing the buildup of electric charge in the air and, like, the channel and the current? Like, does his Sharingan let him see that? And did he see that and slice that? And if not, like, okay, so if he sliced through the return stroke, then how was he able to withstand, like, the massive flash of light, like, right in front of his eyes, like, without taking damage? Was he just that cool? Did he look away? Like, so maybe Kakashi saw a lightning bolt and cut it in half and said, "Fuck you, lightning." Like, yeah, I see Zeus over there. Yeah, like, fuck you, Zeus. Fuck you, Thor. This is my domain, and just sliced it. Or maybe some other random bullshit that we don't see happen, that we'll never really know what happened, and then a legend formed around Kakashi from doing this. Like, what if he fought against Kakuzu? Like, we know from the fight against Kakuzu that he's capable of, what if something happened like when he fought against Kakuzu? We know from the Kakuzu fight that he's capable of jumping in front of a lightning jutsu and using his Raikiri to negate it. And he actually, like, negates two different forks of the Raikiri, right? One with each hand. And he's specifically using the Raikiri to do that. So we have an example of him defeating the Raikiri. We also have an example of Sasuke during the 5 Kage summit, like, piercing the lightning cloak of the Raikage with his own Chidori. So we have another example of the Chidori being used to defeat another lightning jutsu. So what if it was something like that? What if it wasn't, Kakashi like actively fighting a fucking cloud? What if he was like fighting maybe a cloud ninja or a stone ninja? And that's where we get to the anime. So I'm going to try and play a small clip from the anime. I don't know if it'll work, because in the past I have gotten like copyright issues when trying to do this. So if the stream goes dead, I will be right back. I'll just need to like close it down and then it'll come back on. It might be loud, so I'm going to try to mute it as soon as it comes back on. Okay, so here we are in this is episode 288, Jinpachi and Kushimaru of Naruto Shippuden. And please, if you want the full context for this, go watch it yourself. But of course, it's Kakashi and Guy. And it looks like they're fighting 2 of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist or something. And I guess Rin is still alive, or maybe they say something about Rin, so I think she's still here. Anyway, they're fighting, and they're at this campfire and they're talking. Yeah, there's Rin. And so this is when Kakashi's still a teenager, right? So it's before Rin's death, and they get into a situation where they're fighting all these stone ninja, and they get a little overwhelmed, and it looks like Kakashi is nearly running out of chakra. But the stone ninja are then up on this butte or bluff or whatever the proper term for it is, and they're doing some nerdy shit. So get that out of the way. I don't know why this is still here, but thank you for the stats for nerds. So kind of you. But hopefully that goes away. So let's see what happens here, right? So obviously go ahead and watch the scene yourself for context, and maybe watch an episode after this or before this or whatnot to get some more context for it. But here are a bunch of stone ninja, and they're on top of this cliff face, and they are doing some weather shit with a cloud, right? I don't know what the fucking jutsu is that they're using. It looks kind of weird. They're bringing in a whole bunch of clouds into this one location. They're swirling around to this one point, and then there's this sort of purpley, glowy type energy shit that's coming down from the cloud. And then we look to the ground, and then we see that they have this almost what looks like a summoning sigil or something like that, and they're all forming a hand seal. So they are doing some sort of jutsu here. It could be that they are bringing the storm clouds to them. It could be that they are swirling the clouds up above their heads. I'm not entirely sure what exactly they're doing, but here they are. And then here's Kakashi, and he says, okay, they're stone shinobi, and then this is what I think it's Kakashi talking here. They use jutsu formulas that cover a wide area. So it looks like they're preparing a jutsu that could potentially attack either from a wide distance or just have like a wide AoE. There it is. So this is it. So the stone ninja over here are engaging in a jutsu, right? They're engaging in a particular jutsu using a particular formula that is going up into the cloud, and it is in fact happening here is the stone ninja are trying to like prepare this jutsu to attack, for fuck's sake. Okay, there we go. To attack a distant location. I'm not sure. There's the cliff face. So they're like right up there. He starts running towards them. Goes up the cliff face. Up the cliff face. Dash, 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 dash. Okay, there he goes. Dash, 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 dash. He's got his Raikiri active. Now this is important, right? So he's got the Raikiri in his hand. Can I go frame by frame? Ah, damn it, I can't. Okay. Maybe like this? That's not letting me. Okay. So he's got the Raikiri in his hand, and he starts to extend it. He's like that, and then he's got it in his hand, and he's moving forward, and his hand is moving forward. Presses forward, and then you can kind of see, it was kind of hard to see there, but it went really fast, but he shoved his hand forward. And then there's a flash, okay? And then we see this flash. Okay, so my interpretation here of this scene is basically that the Cloud Ninja are doing something that's vaguely similar to what Sasuke does when he does his Kirin, right? They're fucking with the clouds by sending chakra up into them, swirling them around and stuff, and essentially trying to generate some sort of a lightning bolt. Now, whether it's literally a lightning bolt in the natural lightning sense, or whether it is a just a lightning release, not 100% clear. I mean, lightning obviously doesn't look quite like that. And it does look like more like a false darkness thing, where there's these like little jagged blue, bolts that are kind of forking and arcing down from the cloud. So I would say it's probably not literally lightning, but even if we do say that it is, Kakashi already has his Chidori active. He's already running towards the enemies. He's already actively thrusting forward. when he's approaching them, and then the lightning bolt comes down from the cloud and hits him. So that's what I think happened. I think he was dashing towards the enemy. He already had his jutsu available. He didn't need to perceive the lightning bolt. He didn't have to outspeed it. He didn't have to perceive it or any of that shit. All he had to do was just happen to be running forward, and then he got attacked either with a lightning jutsu or lightning from the cloud or whatever else. But that says nothing about his speed, right? That is not a speed feed for him. It's just a power feed for the Chidori that happened to be in the right place at the right time. And then this gradually over time becomes this sort of slightly exaggerated, blown out of proportion fable, again, not fable, like legend about the about this. And this is where I would butt heads, I think, a little bit with TG. Again, I think his video on the subject that he did about a month ago was good, but I think on this point in particular, his point was something along the lines of, well, Kakashi's not one to boast and brag about himself, and in order to cut lightning, he would need to be lightning speed, so we can just accept this as true. I'm obviously, oversimplifying it. Go see his video and see what he actually said. Don't just take my word for it. But at the same time, that's the kind of thing that I kind of chafe up against, right? Is like, well, it says that he cuts lightning, and lightning is this fast, and so he must have done it, and so he must be the speed of lightning. In just taking the statement independently, not putting it into context, and not looking at all the material that we have available to us. Now, some people would probably just say, let's discard the filler entirely, because it's just part of the anime filler, right? So it doesn't matter one way or another. In which case, we're back to square one, and we just have no information to go off of. But I don't know if we should just discard it outright. I think it's worth looking at. I think, as long as it's overall consistent with the story, we can find some insight in it, at least, even if we don't accept it as part of manga canon. And I've been thinking about this too, even with stuff like Road to Ninja, which I don't think you can reconcile Road to Ninja with the overall main story canon. But at the same time, if there's stuff in it that provides us insight and understanding about the characters, I think it's worth at least acknowledging it. It's still a piece of official material. If they're trying to tell us a story, they're trying to inform us something about the universe, we should at least listen. I don't have to throw the whole thing out, right? But I also wouldn't just accept it as necessarily being canon. So if you decide that, it's kind of up to you, it's up for debate, but if you want to use this particular feat, I do think it is still consistent with that. And this is all just to bring it back to, again, if you think that Kakashi is capable of moving at the speed of lightning in part 1, that's okay, you're allowed to, but I don't think we have enough evidence to really support that position. And then if we do accept that position, we have to consider how much force is behind his strikes. If he can move at the speed of lightning, can he, if he is so let's take this, right? Take this as an example. If we accept that when he strikes with the Raikiri, he's moving at the speed of lightning, right? This is a genuine question. It's partially rhetorical, I guess, but not even really. When Haku sacrifices himself here, if Kakashi is actually moving at the speed of lightning in this instance, how much power do we think he has behind his fist, right? If we take the mass of his fist and the speed of lightning, and then we combine that with whatever electrical energy must be behind his fist at the same time, right? How much power is he putting into his fist? How is Haku, who should be low on chakra by now, who is already wounded, is already kind of given up, right? How is Haku not getting completely liquefied by this with the amount of power that should be behind this? How or should he be? Again, this is only a semi-rhetorical question, right? Shouldn't there be so much power behind each of his footfalls? If Kakashi is moving at a third of the speed of light, or even if he's moving at 270,000 miles an hour, how much fucking force is being applied with each of his footfalls to the bridge beneath him? Shouldn't he be generating massive craters in the fucking ground? And even if you're okay, well, that's being too literal in terms of the physics of it. You're getting way too you're applying real world physics to a fictional world. You can't do that. Okay, that's fine. I understand that some people hold that perspective, and I think that, we talked about this before, there are limits to that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it just kind of gets us nowhere. I can't find a way, if you commissioned me to make a video, you paid me to say, to convince you that Kakashi's lightning speed, I don't think I can do so in good faith. Like, I don't think, based on the evidence that I've seen here, I just like can't find like say with a straight face that we have enough information to go on. And especially if we look at the data book and it's like, you know, fucking the Raikiri can cut through anything. You know, a famous blade that can cut through anything. We see this phrase, the legend. Like, isn't it reasonable to be a bit skeptical towards this? You really think it makes the most sense to just accept that it is fucking... Yeah, I don't know. That's my position on this. Let me catch up with chat now. Saria says Guy and Bruce Lee are the only ones who can make bowl cuts look good. It does look pretty good on him, doesn't it? Also, Liu Kang, though he's never had one... IRC might be wrong, though I don't remember. Well, I'm not going to... Liu Kang is fucking Mortal Kombat, right? I'm definitely not prepared to get into the Mortal Kombat lore, so I'll just go with you on that one. That's too complicated. I'm just say Zeus, yeah, Zeus and Thor basically just like taking turns seeing which one of them can hit Kakashi first. Ares, give me a cargo box and my life is yours. Yeah, exactly. Damn, that we were just watching The Sandman last night, and certain character, I don't want to spoil anything, but certain characters are relevant to this, and it's amusing to me. Let's see. Saria says, I think you need to have something covering the animation, like a logo or something, so that people can't see too clearly, like a watermark, and it'll probably be okay as fair use. Also, the pausing helps too. Yeah, I think the pausing helps. I think the like having it in a frame and stuff on the stream, and then also I think the music, like the music detection algorithms are really good, and so if any music comes up, that will usually kind of give me away. Let's see. Oh, Loha. Hey, how's it going? Thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you're doing well. The anime filler goes hard. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this before. Like, some of the movies as well go really hard. I'm watching, like, Naruto Shippuden, the movie right now, and it's really good. I mean, it's not... the story isn't necessarily the most complex thing in the world, but the fights are really great so far. And then we talked before about Blood Prison. Blood Prison's really good. I really like that one. Let's see. Giant Blue Sky Beam, what is a 2010 superhero flick? Well, honestly, like, that's another thing. So, we talked a lot about Kirin before. I don't think we really need to spend too much time going over it. But, like, I keep hearing people alternately saying that Kirin is definitely faster or definitely slower than Lightning because, A, Lightning isn't... Well, basically because Lightning doesn't look like a big fucking blue dragon. And I know that Kirin is more like a horse type thing, not a dragon, but that's what they say. So I'm just kind of responding to that, right? And some people say that because chakra is going through it, that we know that chakra enhances things, so it must be making the Kirin faster than normal lightning, because that's what chakra would do. And then I've heard other people say the exact opposite, where they're like, the Kirin fucking... Hang on, let's bring it up while I'm talking about this. Kirin is obviously, like, getting chakra put into it, so it would slow it down. And you can't assume that it's natural lightning. So, either way, you know, like, there's not anything we can really say about it. But, I mean, here's something, right? This thunderhead, this thundercloud over here, is already casting down lightning from the sky, right? There's already clearly a buildup of electrical differential, or whatever the term for it is, between the cloud itself and the ground, and lightning bolts are already forming. That being said, I don't know that lightning really looks or works like this in the real world. It's usually not like that thick or whatever. You could probably argue that it would be generating a much like wider flash or whatever. So, I mean, this is a stylistic rendering of lightning. It does not necessarily pair one-to-one with real-world lightning, and that's okay, right? It doesn't have to literally function the same way as lightning does in our real world. But the thing that is happening over here, and like this thing too, like, I don't know, maybe this is based on a natural phenomenon, but this too, the way that it's like arcing out and like gathering together in the center, I'm not sure that really represents real world lightning either. But Sasuke now you can see activates Chidori on his hand. He has a little bit of a trail, a little bit of a conduit, or like a leash or something, right? That's kind of trailing off of it. And then he hops up here, and then he's able to connect that. It's like kind of forking and arcing up into the sky. So all of this energy is already here in the clouds, and it's already doing its own little lightning thing. And so it's already there. It's already natural lightning. Like, Sasuke used fire to make this, but now he's not doing anything to it, right? And so all he does here, he literally says, in short, I merely direct its power towards you. It's like very, very, very clear. It guides the lightning striking down from the heavens. It directs its power towards you. We went over this before, like last week, or a couple weeks ago. But like, I couldn't find any evidence here whatsoever that Sasuke is amping it or anything like that. All he's doing is that she's just making it look like he's like changing the shape of the outline of it, maybe, right? In order to make it look like this. Or as he's guiding it down, like he doesn't even really need to provide shape transformation to it. He's literally just kind of like gently guiding the electricity that's already in the air to kind of form into this vague shape, right? So at least to my reading of it, he's not making it faster. He's not making it slower. He's just kind of like swirling it around and then bringing it down. And then also, since we're on the topic, you know, some people will look at this and say that, okay, this is definitive proof that at least Itachi is a lightning time reaction speed person. And it's possible that he is. I don't find that super controversial as much as like Part 1 Kakashi. However, it's worth noting as well that Itachi, as we talked about before, so I'll keep this brief, but like Itachi watches this happen. Sasuke explains literally everything that's going on in great detail. He's like, okay, this is how this works. This is what's going to happen. He raises his hand up, then he brings his hand down, then he holds his hand down for a second, and then he twists his hand. Unless you think that these three shots are of the same thing happening at the same time, but it looks to me like maybe they're just three angles of the same thing. So maybe he's just like pushing his hand down. But I always thought that like, no, his hand is facing the ground and then he twists it, right? And so Itachi perceives all this happening and has time to watch it happen, has time to anticipate what's happening, and kind of understands, like with the Mangekyo, he can also like use the predictive fucking kinetic vision shit. So he has time to prepare for the Susanoo. He just needs to start gathering chakra and make sure that he like fires it off when he predicts Sasuke's hand is going to be here, as opposed to like seeing the lightning bolt and then parrying it at the last minute. But as for the lightning bolt itself, no, it's just fucking lightning, man. Like, that's the whole point. Right? Like, I don't understand why that there's the controversy about this. If you think that Itachi parried the lightning bolt, then obviously he'd have to have, like, some form of lightning reactivity. That doesn't necessarily mean he's moving his whole body at the speed of lightning, but at least he can mentally react to the flash, and he can parry it with a chakra release in the form of the Susanoo. So he can mentally react to lightning. Okay, fine. Superhuman characters amping up their perception with fucking visual acuity and all that. Fine. I'm not going to argue with you about that. But just understand that there's like some nuance there, right? Anyway, my umbrella, also known as water splitter, is my yeah, exactly. Well, your umbrella can split water. And the ocean is made of what? I'm sorry, it's made of what? That's right, it's made of water. So you can literally displace oceans with a piece of plastic. So, you know, I'm remembering, what is that meme on Vine or whatever where the guy was like, Poseidon quivers before him, fuck off. You can just imagine you wading out into the ocean, like with your umbrella, being like, fuck you, Moses, eat your heart out. I am the master of the waves. Lightning can't be a giant dragon. I could swear I saw a lightning bolt do that once. I mean, sorry, I'm just trying to downplay. You know me, I'm a One Piece fan. I'm just trying to downplay not only Naruto's lightning, but I'd go so far as to downplay real world lightning to get my One Piece agenda off the ground. Because you know I'm all about like One Piece wanking, obviously. Sarah says, I feel bad for the poor bastard who just happened to be walking by and got struck by lightning. Because Sasuke caused a category 9,000 thunderstorm to kill one guy. Yeah, not to mention all of the poor, like, innocent forest wildlife that was just displaced. Like, how many fucking just, like, birds and squirrels and shit were just hanging out? And because these two assholes had to yell at each other using clouds, they all got it's like Miss Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. It's moving day. Dr. Strangle says, controversy is that this is a massive feat and plot counter example for higher level speed scaling. Yeah, right. Like, it's sort of like at this pivotal juncture where Sasuke, Itachi, and Kakashi are all kind of connected to this, and then Zetsu's statement is also like something that's related to it, and so, or like Zetsu's clout, I guess, is something that kind of comes up here as well, and so it reaches out then into characters like the Raikage, and then to KCM1 Naruto, and anybody else who you think is relative to Itachi, like kind of winds up converging on this point. So yeah, I get it, but to me it's weird. To me it just seems pretty straightforward. Just a fucking lightning bolt, right? Like that's, and that's honestly, like, I think to me, if we go back to part 1 and say that Kakashi in part 1 is already the speed of lightning, and Itachi is vastly superior to, I think arguably, to adult Kakashi, then and then we start making statements about characters like Itachi moving at the speed of light, then it's not really impressive at all that Sasuke managed to, like, he spent however much time like training with Orochimaru. This is his ultimate jutsu. This is his trump card, right? This is the thing that is going to defeat Itachi. Fucking Itachi, the fucking menace who was like towering over, he's like stronger than Orochimaru. He's stronger than, which means he was probably stronger than Hiruzen, which is stronger than, he might be competitive with Jiraiya, etc., right? Like, he's one of the strongest characters in the series. Like, you were growing up reading this, or just like sort of reading this as it was coming out, like, this was one of the biggest confrontations, and Itachi was one of the scariest, most intimidating characters in the entire series. And Sasuke's like trump card jutsu that he developed specifically to kill Itachi was something that like teenage Kakashi could have just like run through. Doesn't that like kind of make this feat just seem like far less cool and imposing and impressive? It just kind of like, it's like, oh wow, congratulations, you have, like, after sacrificing your ties and your bonds to the village, after giving yourself over to like a Michael Jackson snake man who wants to wear your skin, this is all you came up with, something that's like on par with like teenager Kakashi. No fucking clap for Sasuke's dignity here, everybody. It's just much more impressive, and it feels much more pivotal if Itachi is not light speed and he's like more relative. Maybe he can like pull out a last second lightning speed maneuver or something like that. But if he was casually light speed like hundreds of chapters ago, then this is fucking nothing. It's like all just a bunch of gas and no substance to it. Anyway, which I don't think, like, then it starts to get into this weird like death of the author territory, where people will then argue, not everybody obviously, but some people will then be willing to argue that, like, okay, yeah, maybe Kishimoto intended for this scene to be so dramatic and intended for Itachi to actually be way slower, but he fucked up and he made that databook entry, and so even if it totally ruins the scene, it doesn't matter, because factually speaking, death of the author, right? It's just he is that fast. And at that point, like, I don't care to have that argument anymore. Like, if you're so committed to just being like, I need this scaling to work so bad that I don't give a fuck about the author's intentions or how it affects the story or anything. The author made a mistake and it's his fault, and now he's accountable to that mistake. And I'm just like that's such a weird way of interpreting art, and I just don't care to indulge it personally. If you were to come back at me and be like, no, you're missing the point. It's that Kishimoto has like a hidden message in it, and we're supposed to think that this is actually, like, we're supposed to eventually figure out that Sasuke thought this was super impressive and Zetsu thought that it was super impressive, but actually it wasn't. And that makes Itachi even more imposing and even like more threatening. And then you have like a something like that, like it's a hidden message and it's something we've uncovered. Okay, like I'll hear that. That actually sounds kind of fun. But, you know, just limits to that sort of thing. Anyway, just my opinion. Dr. Strangle says, just the most, if there is any guy we should trust to know what they're talking about, should be this guy. Which, the Zetsu statement? Maybe. The thing is, I'm actually pretty skeptical about Zetsu because he seems... Let's go over this real quick. So, I mean, like, there's two halves to Zetsu, right? It's like, Black Zetsu and White Zetsu. White Zetsu tends to be a little bit more naive and jokey. Black Zetsu tends to be a little bit more serious. And obviously Black Zetsu is the one who was around in Kaguya's time. But also, like, he did actually kind of figure out what was going on, understands the cumulonimbus and stuff like that, and is explaining it. But also... Oh, yeah, okay. So White Zetsu is the one who says nobody can evade the jutsu just like the Amaterasu, and so he's questioning it, and then Black Zetsu explains it and figures it out. Okay, so yeah, he is pretty smart. He is figuring out stuff in real time. Maybe we're just reading the previous point related to speed wrong, but not for death. Yeah, exactly. No, the author died after the manga came out for all of our philosophical purposes, and so therefore we can just like say whatever we want. Dr. Strangle says, Teen Kakashi top one of the verse. Yeah, exactly. Like, he sets the standard and everybody else is just trying to catch up to him. Saria says, well, once I knew this guy who 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 knew this guy's cousin. Great, I didn't know you could beatbox. It was awesome. Good job, Saria. It's a great little beat. Fuck me. I don't know what else to say. I think that's basically what I wanted to cover for today. Let me just take a look. So, I think how to stop weed. Why do I feel so fucking called out by this? Yes, the 3 things that I have been pining for every day. 1, how to stop fucking coughing and wheezing. 2, what is a data book and how do I use it? 3, where the fuck is my family? This ad is way too personal. Wow. Okay, that's a good sign that I need to get the fuck off the internet. But that being said, I think the main shit that I wanted to cover, right, was like the Haku, the Waterfang Bullet, Kirin, Raikiri, talked about all that stuff. Heavenly Transfer and the Lariat, I think Lariat is really quick, but the Light Fang is the one that I think is going to require a bit more in-depth talking about, and so I think I want to take the time to read the some of the documents that people have sent me, kind of go over those and see how I feel about them before next time. And then Urashiki could be a longer topic, Heavenly Transfer as well. So I think that's what we'll do. I think we'll stop for tonight because we're hitting the 3-hour mark neatly. Next time we'll start with Heavenly Transfer, and then we'll do sort of like a Q&A, and then like clean up a couple of these last arguments. I think Light Fang and the Urashiki are going to be the 2 last big ones to tackle, and we should be able to move on to something else after that. So, with that being said, let me check chat real quick. Sorry, it says when I take my meds and my wife and kids disappear. Yes, exactly. Now I find out my wife's been dead for 3 years. Who the hell did I hit? Dr. Strangle says the AI overloads know exactly what she needs to click the ad. Yeah, I'm terrified. I don't know what else it's gonna learn about me if I do. If it starts advertising to me about multiverses, then I'm breaking the computer and I'm running away to Alaska. But that being said, thank you so much for the discussion, for the commentary. It's always a ton of fun hanging out with y'all and talking about this stuff. I feel like I've been able to kind of share some of my thoughts and get some stuff off my chest. Hopefully, if you've been listening to this, if you watch the video back, you learn something and you understand where I'm coming from. But of course, like, I want this to be part of an ongoing discussion. So if you disagree with me, that's also totally fine. You're allowed to. You're encouraged to. Feel free to leave me a comment. If you'd like to join the Discord and talk together at some point, let me know. I'd be happy to send you a link. Next Thursday is going to be our next stream, starting at, I think, 7 p.m. EST. We're going to be playing some more Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And next Sunday, we're going to be wrapping up our Lightspeed discussion at 6 p.m. EST as well. So, thank you again very, 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 very much. I hope you have a wonderful week.